Hey, good evening all, and welcome to another space with me, Kalu Aja. Of course, we call it our money space, and on this space, we are talking money, the economy, and finance, and we try to make it personal to you. How do the topics of the week, those big money topics, affect your wallet personally? That's what we want to talk about, right? This week, we are talking in general about Nigeria's fiscal issues, i.e., tax budget issues. And we're asking a very, very simple question. Does Nigeria have an earnings problem, i.e., revenues flowing into the country are not enough? Or does Nigeria have a spending problem, i.e., we get the revenues, but it's being wasted through, wasteful spending? That's what we want to talk about today. Of course, that's a topic that's going to take us into many areas, into how the government is set up, into how the states and the local governments get funds and how they are spent and how they're all tied back into the general plan. So it's a very, very simple question, but very, very wide topic area for us to discuss. As usual, I like to give like an intro with the fact and the numbers, and of course, you guys can all hop in if you want to speak, request to speak, or send a DM. We'll grab it, and then you can have your stake. I just shared a tweet, so that's going to be my last tweet just before this space started, and I'm reviewing the Nigeria's income statement in financial year 2023. So just that tweet alone sort of encapsulates all we want to talk about in this space. So just take a look at that last tweet. It's literally there. It's titled Nigeria's Income Statement Financial Year 2023. I'm going to read it rather slowly just so that we understand and we take in the point I'm making. And these figures are all from the federal government of Nigeria. All these figures. It's published online, the Budget Office, Federal Government of Nigeria. Number one, Nigeria's oil revenues cannot cover the cost of salaries of MDAs. Again, just salaries. We're not talking about allowances, we're talking about pensions, just the salaries. So all the oil you see, all the Dangote refinery, Shell, Exxon, oil and gas, every infrastructure you see in Nigeria, in Port Harcourt, Delta, Akwa Ibom, all the revenues from those assets cannot pay the salaries alone of MDAs in Nigeria. Salaries alone. We're not talking about pensions or service-wide votes, just salaries alone. And the receipts are there in the tweet. I've posted the budget number, so you can look at it. The receipts are all there. Number two, Nigeria's total revenue. So now we're talking about the oil and gas. We're talking about cocoa. We're talking about the fines that MTN pays. Everything Nigeria makes, everything Nigeria has earned for financial year 2023 cannot cover debt service. Not the loan. We've borrowed, I think we're owing about 101 trillion or something crazy like that. To service that debt Nigeria has borrowed, all the revenues, if you take every revenue from oil, gas, cocoa, cowpea, fines, electronic money payment, every revenue Nigeria has earned cannot cover the debt service that Nigeria is paying for financial year 2023. Second data point. Third data point. The interest the federal government of Nigeria paid to the Central Bank of Nigeria for borrowing under the now discarded Ways and Means is 3 times what Nigeria earned from VAT. So let's go back again. Nigeria's largest earning source, even if you include crude oil, is from taxes, corporate income taxes, then VAT. So what we're saying here is that what Nigeria, the federal government of Nigeria, paid to the Central Bank of Nigeria as interest for borrowing from Central Bank of Nigeria 23 trillion naira is 3 times the amount of money that was earned from VAT to the federal government of Nigeria. These are crazy. If the receipts are not there, we will argue this was real. And of course, EFCC earned 0 for the federal government of Nigeria in the whole of 2023. So all the noise, all the run around you see FCC doing, wearing their red, nice, cute jackets, they contributed absolutely zero to the federal government's budget or revenues in 2023. Again, figures from the federal government of Nigeria's budget office. I've posted it online. The receipts are there so you can see it. It's not my handwriting, it's literally there. How do you have a country that the total revenues, America is borrowing $1 trillion every 100 days. So if you say 100 days, America borrows $1 trillion. But America is paying. They're paying back at 4%, but they're still paying back. Nigeria's case, Nigeria's total revenues, everything we earn, we can't service the debt from the total revenues. Even the crude oil and gas, that is, we're supposed to be the largest exporter of crude oil in Africa, right? We can't pay salaries of just salaries, not debt, not fixed roads. Forget about fixing roads or something. I'm talking about salaries alone, not like allowances, not like training, just salaries alone. What kind of countries? What does it look like a serious country to you? Let's look at the National Assembly. I want to pick a National Assembly particularly. Of all the budgets in Nigeria, there is only one budget that is not broken down line by line. The president's budget is broken down. The Defense Intelligence Agency, our own version of the CIA, the FBI, the NSA, all these secretive institutions, if you go online, you can see their budgets broken down line by line. The NSA's budget, National Security Advisor's budget, is broken down line by line. The president's budget is broken down line by line. Many state governors, they break their budgets down line by line. The only institution in the whole of Nigeria whose budget is not broken down line by line is the National Assembly of Nigeria. They simply give you a figure, and that figure should be a figure of 369 billion. End of story. Go to town. That's it. They don't break it down. Why don't they break it down? Because that's where they put all the waste that they spend money on. National Assembly had 5 billion for a library or so last year. Where's the library? All these cars they import, the SUVs they import, it's in that non-broken down budget. All the quote-unquote tokens and prayers they get, it's in that budget. So go back to our question. Is the problem with that 2023 budget I just read out now, is it a question of that Nigeria is not earning enough, that the total revenues from crude oil and gas can only pay salary, they can only cover salaries? Or is it that the salaries are too much? If you say the salaries are too much, remember that the minimum wage of Nigeria is still 30,000 naira. Even though, yes, oil and gas workers earn more, but still, the minimum wage, the baseline is still 30,000 naira. And we are saying that when we export crude oil at $80 a barrel, 90 a barrel, when we sell gas from Nigeria Liquefied Natural Gas and we get the dividends, when we export cocoa, when we find MTN pesos in dollars, whatever we do in Nigeria as a country, the total revenues from Nigeria cannot pay the salaries of the federal MDA workers alone. There's a problem, guys. It's no longer a maths question. It's a problem of the structure. I've argued that the issue is wasteful spending, not the revenues. We know everybody needs revenues. We know there is no nation on earth that has revenues to spend at will. But in Nigeria's case, the little we get, we have blown it into, we just spend. And it's not just the spending, guys. Let's get the structure right. When oil prices go up, Nigeria increases salaries. We did this with the Udoju report. We've done this with minimum wage increases. When we had the Gulf War increase, Gulf War revenues, we increased salaries, we increased expenditures. But the income of Nigeria is tied to crude oil, and crude oil revenues are variable. So when crude oil revenues go back down, Nigeria does not reduce her budgets and her salaries back down. So the baseline is always high in Nigeria. Exact same thing is happening today. we want to increase minimum wage in Nigeria from 30,000 to, according to Labour, 450,000. That means that if Labour gets 450,000, they might not get it. They might maybe get something lower than that. That becomes the baseline. But we're making this baseline because crude oil is at 80. What happens when crude oil goes to 50? What happens? We still have to pay a wage bill based on the crude oil of 125 or whatever it is that Labour has negotiated. You see the problem? We have never in Nigeria's history cut down costs or salaries. We've only had one austerity budget, and we called it SAP. If you tell Nigerians SAP, it elicits huge negative connotations because Nigerians, instead of fixing the problem, want to spend more to fix the problem, to bottle up the problem. Look at the federal government's response to the economic crisis that is going on today. They want to spend more. They want to spend about 2 trillion. According to my calculation, they're going to spend nearly 4 trillion. They're going to borrow. This is not the budget. This is the money they're going to borrow extra to spend on things like giving money, quote unquote, wink, wink, to the poor. They're going to buy CNG buses. If I hear CNG buses one more time, if I hear anybody saying CNG buses just one more time, we're going to buy those things again. So there is no rhyme, there is no strategy. It's just, the people are complaining. Let's give money to the poor. Let's buy buses. Let's do farming. Remember, we're going to farming. I saw the first lady. I commend her with her garden farm. She was wearing gloves to farm. I commend her. Fine. I have no issues with that. But Nigeria needs let's leave that. So guys, I've done my rant. I've given you numbers, I've given you figures. Like I said, just go to the last tweet I did before the space started. It's right there. I did it on purpose so you don't have to search for it. You see the total breakout of Nigeria's 2023 actual budget. If you look at the projections, they are a joke. Before I forget, Nigeria says they want to get to 2 million barrels of crude oil a day in 12 months. So by this time next year, we'll have 2 million barrels a day. That just tells you that this is a joke to the guys running the economy. With all sense of responsibility, Nigeria cannot get to 2 million barrels a day in crude oil. Just like Chelsea Football Club cannot win Champions League last year. It's just not possible. Have you seen the oil exports figures? You have gone from 2.2 million barrels in 2005. That's when your country was booming. That's when you had reverse japa, when you had people coming from the UN and the World Bank to work in Nigeria. When you had people coming back to Nigeria, your oil price was about 60, 70, and you had 60 billion in your foreign reserves. There was no speculation. How can you speculate when there's 60 billion in the CBN to defend the Naira? Because you had 2.2 million barrels a day exports. That export number today is about 1.4, 1.5. Our own budget, Nigeria's own budget, is 1.7. We haven't met it. OPEC gave us a target of 1.5. We haven't. So OPEC says, Nigeria, you can't export 1.7, which is in your budget. We want you to only export 1.5. We haven't met the OPEC 1.5. But we want to miraculously, in 12 months, increase that 1.4 to 2 million barrels a day because they know that nobody will challenge them and people will praise them online. So it just tells you the level of people you are dealing with. People just throw figures out there because people are complaining rice is expensive. Just throw a figure out there. Just do a plan. They call it the ASAP plan. So guys, if you haven't noticed, we have a problem. My 15 minutes is up, which means it's my time to get out of the way and let the real owners of Nigeria, you guys listening, speak. I'm tempted to talk about Kenya, and we're going to talk about the Samoa agreement sometime. But for now, let's deal with the issue. Do we have a spending problem or revenue problem? Like I said, it's a very simple question, but it dovetails into many things. First to speak, I got Oak, then I got AfriBill. Hey, Mr. Oak, what's going on, sir? What's your take? Do you agree? Where do you stand? Do we have a spending or do we have a revenue problem? You've seen my numbers. I've given you receipts. What's your take?
Good evening, sir. Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Go for it.
Yeah. I don't want to be rude, but Nigeria is a joke of a country. the political class are taking us for a ride. There is no checks, there is no balance on what they're doing. It's obvious that we have a spending problem. When you're talking about the federal, you also put in the state as well. Their elephant projects, the airports that are necessary, that they're renting left, right, and center. The aids. We all know what they're doing. But how can a country grow? In fact, I usually say that we don't have a purpose as a people. If the political class can look backward, can look what our forefathers fought for, the essence of gaining independence, I think we deviated from that angle. We are not chasing individual glory, greed. We don't know our purpose in the community of nations.
Let me ask you a question. How you don't have to tell me you exactly, but how old? What band are you? Are you 20, 25, 45 to 50? What band would you say your age is?
30s. My late 30s.
Have you voted in Nigeria before?
Yes.
How many times?
Twice.
So, would you vote the next time? Just curiosity. Do you think your voting had an impact? Would you vote next election? I mean, irrespective of who is running.
I'm done with voting in Nigeria.
Why?
I'm done. The reason why I'm done because we see how the political class have hijacked all the institutions that are supposed to work for everyone. We see how they have hijacked it. What happened the last election was a joke. The IREV.
I hear you, but how else do you think you can change the country? You've said Nigeria is a joke. If the politics have deviated on track, what's your idea? How would you change something in your local government? How would you change your local government?
We need to go back to the blueprint. We need to go back to regional government. That's my own take. Okay. We need to shift away power, take away so much power from the center, and give it back to the people. Let us go back to the way we were. We are those at the federal are too far from the grassroots. Let us go back to the way we were, and let us get it right from there.
Gotcha. Good points. I hear you. Go back to regional. You're not really happy with the politics of the country. You want to take it back to you want to get governors that is nearer to you. I hear you. Afribull, you heard the young man. He's 30. He has voted twice. He's done with elections, but he wants to have this new regional framework to get governance back home. Afribull, what's your take on this? Oak, thank you. Appreciate you, sir. Afribull, you got the floor.
Hi, Carlo. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yeah. So I was just laughing when you were 15 minutes because you touched most of the points. I was taking off most of the things you brought up there. It's a simple question, as you said. We've always had a spending problem. I can't recall, at least in the last 20 years, where we didn't have a spending problem. But our revenues were enough to offset that. The oil revenues were a safety net in a way for politicians in discretion. They never really had to have fiscal discipline because if you waste money this month, as you said, you have X amount of billions coming next month.
Interesting point.
You have excess crude oil funds. That was the reality for the last 8 years, the last 20 years before that. Now, a lot of these politicians now are the same class of politicians then. And I don't think mentally they've made the adjustment.
Interesting.
Well, obviously, they haven't made the adjustment. Because how we are not deep into austerity measures now, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
We should be.
Yeah.
Buhari should have started austerity measures. The government is overbloated. Even for a democratic system, the government is overbloated. We have too many ministries. The ministries have too many parastatals. They have too many programs. I don't know what to sidetrack and get into this giveaways, and I call them giveaways. These are giving money to the poor. Just give 100 billion. So nobody's tracking this. I've never even seen a follow-up
It's waste. It's waste.
It's waste.
You give cash to you know what happens in that when they have political pressure in the part of the country, you say you're giving money to the poor, you give it to the politicians there, the politicians keep quiet. That's how you buy silence. So we took $500 million loan from the World Bank to institute a cash disbursement policy to the poor. And let's be very, very clear. I support that policy. It's worked in Brazil. It's not the cash given as a problem. It's that the money doesn't get to the poor people in Nigeria. That money is stolen. It's stolen. And that's why sometimes you fault the World Bank. This money was not given away with biometrics and you just kept quiet. Now we have 500 million we're going to pay back. You and I will pay it back. The poor didn't get the money. The money is probably in Dubai and London right now. So, yeah.
Exactly. But even I could even add, just to add to your point, it does affect. When you give money out, you can't cheat economics. It's a system. There is an inflationary pressure when you pump money into the system, whether you're giving it out or you're wasting it as on White Elephant project. But it doesn't mean it doesn't have an impact for the goal of it. But there is it's an inefficiency. If you have to be handing out money, we're not an wartime country. If you're handing out money to the poor in large chunks, there's a bigger problem. Much bigger problem. But not to get sidetracked. So we've always had. They haven't made the adjustment. If you look at, I think I saw, maybe you have seen this as well, the budgets of the Chief of Staff Office in the last 10 years. Literally going from millions to billions. The Chief of Staff is a glorified executive assistant to the president. He doesn't have any function outside the ASU work. But you have a budget matching some parastatals.
I mean, if you want to play that game, look at the National Assembly's budget is larger. I think is it 22 states, 22 states, or is it 18 states? The National Assembly's budget is larger. I think it's 18 or 22 states in the federation. How is that even possible? How is that possible? The federal government, the National Assembly, how many are they? They have a budget larger than 18 or let's just go with 18 by that then 18 states. How?
If you recall, they made a case. I think many years back. Can't remember how that they had to increase their salaries to reduce corruption.
Is that a joke?
No, that was a formal statement by the House. I think we can find it online if you wish to say. That was a formal statement.
I mean, if you take away the National Assembly today, if you take them away today, the GDP of Nigeria will go up. And we wouldn't miss them. Truly. They have no purpose in Nigeria. I'm talking about the House and the Senate. Apart from, say, passing the laws, I get it. They're not providing a check and balance. They don't provide an oversight. They are simply spending money. We don't need them at all.
The law function.
What have they done? What have they done?
I've even seen some of the law suggestions. They're not doing anything. At least they clearly. I mean, how long did we spend talking about the national anthem?
2
days.
We
are borderline in a state of emergency when it comes to our finances.
We have 4. Nigeria has got 4 budgets concurrently running. 4 budgets. 2023 budget, 2023 supplementary, 2024 budget, 2024 supplementary. Then we're still going to start the 2025 budget process. So we might have 4 budgets and 1 in progress. Why not simply collapse all 4 into one new austerity budget and start all over again? Why do you need 4 budgets? I tell you why. Because the money that is tied to a politician is in one budget. If you collapse it, they lose that budget. That's why they don't want to collapse it. Whose house or company here on this space runs 4 budgets? You say, oh I want to spend money, but it's on the year 2025 budget. Let me leave that. Who does that? You always have one budget. But if you're a politician and you've managed to smuggle in some spending into your budget and it's in the 2023 budget and it's not being done, of course you vote that they extend it so that the money can come out and you get your money out. That's why they are doing it. It has nothing to do with it. It doesn't make any sense. There's no country on earth that has even 1 or 2 budgets. China does 10-year. US does 2-year. You've got to sit down and plan. How do you plan with 4 budgets? 2023 budget what's inflation in 2023? What's inflation in 2024? Everything is gone out the window. 4 budgets.
It's the but each year the budget is kind of disconnected from reality, especially economic reality, even more. And then they get even more ambitious with the metrics of how many barrels of oil we expect, the inflationary numbers we expect. Those keep going down, and the expectations keep going up. And I'm not sure why they're not making the adjustment. I don't 2 million going to 2 million barrels per day in the time frame they suggested. It hasn't even been done.
It's an insult. But I hear you. I mean, like you said, Nigeria has a baseline. We haven't adjusted. The people have adjusted. You see people doing sachets, spending 101, or even eating once a day. The population taxpayers have adjusted, but the politicians have not adjusted. I think that's a key point at all.
That's clearly the situation.
Gotcha. Ken, thanks, everybody. Ken, what's up, man?
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Good evening. Good evening, Kalu. Good evening, everyone. To be honest, I would like to say that after watching the video today from the First Lady, I just flashed back and I remembered the military era when this same message was being propagated, telling people to plant in their backyards and feed themselves. And that was the Nigeria then. You know, that Nigeria where you could find pure water. See, the truth of the matter is that one of the efforts that helped to reduce cholera cases in Nigeria was the introduction of pure sachet water, the one we call pure water. So Nigeria moved from pure water. Pure water was basically water from tap directly into a nylon, and then they sell on the street for ₦1 back then.
Yeah,
that was pure water then. But or rather, they call it ice water. Yes, I remember now. They call it ice water back then. Then having pure water helped to kind of ensure that households had some kind, I would say, sanitized water. You know, potable water for people to be able to drink. People who don't have access to, you know, waterboard, pipe-borne water in their house. That was the substitute. But right now, do you know that, Kalu, Nigeria has gone back to the age of ice water? People are now selling ice water on the street because pure water is now expensive. And then you ask yourself, how did cholera come back all of a sudden out of nowhere? When have you heard in the last 10, 20 years that 100 Nigerians died as a result of cholera within a very short period of time? All of these things are adding up. All of these things they are adding up. I would like to bring the case of Argentina. You know, you've been following Argentina very well. And the kind of inflation they've been dealing with before the new administration came. This new administration that came, they did 4 or 5 things, which include some fiscal measures and the monetary measures. In Nigeria, we have done the monetary measure. We've seen frantic efforts from the CBN coming, issuing circular almost on a daily basis to sanitize the monetary side. But on the fiscal side, if you sit down with our politicians and you tell them that they need to cut costs, if you're an economist, even that's being a professional, a knowledge owner in that space, they will throw you out of the room. They will tell you that you don't know what you are saying. How can we reduce costs? In a typical Nigerian politician, they don't understand that a country like Nigeria can be broke. They don't get it. They don't believe when you say that we can no longer print money or we can no longer borrow. It doesn't make sense to them. For them, they will continue to spend and they will continue to borrow. If they cannot find the money anywhere, they will borrow, they will manufacture, they will do whatever they need to do to do that. And Argentina right now, they've reduced their inflation from 33% to 40% as at May.
What they've done?
They have target to get it down more. And Kalu, what they did that was significant was on the fiscal side, which include cutting costs of governance by as much as 70%, including reducing salaries of government officials. That was what they did in Argentina. But can you do that in Nigeria? Can any politician think of doing something like that and it's going to be successful? I don't think so. That's where we need to hit.
Buhari had the political capital to do it, to change Nigeria fundamentally. He could have done anything he wanted and survived politically. he didn't do it. And maybe when he fell sick, he came back and he completely lost his way. That was the last guy, I think, that could have done something like that and still won re-election, to scrap all this waste and all that. And you make the point, I don't know how it works. The Cardoso and Wale Edu are both quote unquote. I'm not trying to be disrespectful. They are both Tinubu boys. They worked with Mr. Tinubu, so they have their own kitchen cabinet they meet. Now they are both quote unquote economists, so they understand money flow. So on one line you have Mr. Cardoso increasing monetary policy rates because there's too much cash in circulation. On the other hand, same government, you have Mr. Wale Edu increasing money supply in the economy by passing this new 2 trillion ASAP policies, by spending all this money. So CBN is increasing rates because Wale Edu is increasing spending, all under the same government. Who is paying for these taxes? The people of Nigeria. So why not come and say we can't fight inflation in Nigeria because inflation is driven by food? So why not just reduce the interest rate? Let's chop the inflation, but let people be able to feed. Open the borders, get food in. Argentina opened the borders, they cut spending. There's a lot of pain in Argentina. They're not finding it easy. People are suffering in Argentina. But the man is saying you've got to suffer today so that tomorrow things get better. We also saw the man in flying commercial.
Yeah.
When he went to see his girlfriend. That video in Nigeria, go back to the comments under that video in Nigeria. You see people defending, it's a stunt. But you've got to show the perception that you understand the mood of the room. In Nigeria, the president's planes are bad. And I get it. For security reasons, he has to fly private. I get it. But read the room. Why not read the room and say, okay, even if we're going to buy a jet, maybe not now. But it's almost once it's the president's thing, we must spend on with that. Once it's presidency or anything to do with foreign airlines, Nigeria has money. Once it is ASU or anything to do with spending on infrastructure, we don't have money. It's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, you've. Oh, okay. Is there feedback?
No, go ahead and I'll actually speak. I'll let the next person speak.
Okay. No, I mean you've captured it excellently well. I mean, I don't understand. I've said it in one of your spaces that Nigerian government officials right now, most especially the elected ones, they should be on minimum wage as a show of seriousness that we are really committed to.
They are minimum wage. They are minimum wage.
Well, it depends on what you define as minimum wage, because they keep complaining that even the ones they are collecting is not enough. That's what they are saying, Abi. It depends on what you define as minimum wage.
You see, if you pull up the salary of a Nigerian senator, he earns less than a Nigerian bank manager. The problem is the allowances that they get. The senators get
allowances. Okay, let me correct myself. Salaries and allowances, most especially the black box of the National Assembly members, most especially. That's where the issue is. Nobody knows what is happening in their space. They do whatever they like. They have the power of appropriation. Because of that, they use it to their advantage, and I mean, it's quite unfortunate. You talk about flying commercial. Lee Kuan Yew back then in Singapore did the same thing. He was doing the same thing, not to appear like they are a rich country. Meanwhile, they were a poor country, but he needed help from the rest of the world. Because of that, he abandoned his private jet and flew commercial. For goodness sake, you want to save the country. They told us, in fact, the president's wife said to Nigerians that they don't need Nigeria's money. But for goodness sake, why is there a budget for the first lady? Why is there an office for the first lady? Look at what has happened in Kenya, to the point that they've scrapped the budget of the first lady. That is not even needed at all. We have a spending problem, not a revenue problem. We have a spending problem. We need to change that culture. It is killing us. It's killing Nigeria.
Let's have decorum. Slow down. Let him finish, then you can speak. Let's slow down. Ken, thanks for the submission. You see Nigeria has a spending problem. I got you. Olayemi, just don't worry. You speak. That's why you are already added, so you speak. I just want to take people that have joined in earlier, then I'll let you speak. Just hang in there, yeah? Olumide, hi. How you doing? Ken, thank you. Olumide, hi. Are you with us today?
Yeah, Carlo, good evening.
Yeah,
Thanks
let me
for
do.
having me.
Yeah, great. I mean, I find your comments the way you attach the capital markets to Nigerians' day to day spending. I find it very very refreshing. What's your take really on this topic? We all know we need more revenues, but the excess spending is just mind blowing. That a country that cannot pay salaries is contemplating buying new private jets, has already built 21 billion mansions for the VP, is buying SUVs for the first lady or after the first lady. It's no, it's just a tone deaf, let them eat cake kind of administration. What's your take on this?
Yeah, first of all, I've been following you for a while, and you know that I've written so much on this part that I get tired about it. I think, I know the narrative and I know where you stand and I know the consensus. We definitely have a big spending problem. And it's so bad that it has created a depleted revenue structure in the Nigerian economy. I was just looking at the numbers and I spoke with different policymakers on why revenue is so endemic. And the answer is that simply because the structure of the economy is not efficient. We often have been shouting, why is revenue this low? Why is the level of competence and accountability? I just want to make a little anatomy structure so that people can understand. The body is so structured that a lot of people think the heart produces the blood, but blood is produced in the bone marrow. And if you understand what the heart does, simply just oscillate and distribute around the body. And when you look at that, you put it in the context of the CBN. When you put the bone marrow, you put it in the context of the NNPC. Now, when you put the brain, you put it in the context of the presidency. Now, the problem we're having is that the most functional setup in our economy is the CBN. The fiscal side, there's nothing to even say about that. Now, the NNPC side, why it gets me scary, Carlo, is that if you look at this year, I remember I came to this space and I remember the salient points you highlighted that as long as we don't fix our oil export, the Naira will keep dancing. And you were really right. But then, what we were looking at was that the CBN, with the aggressive approach towards bringing liquidity in form of elevating interest rates, though it also increased the cost of debt servicing, gave the Naira some lifeline. But what we've been able to see is that the fiscal side has been unable to bring that to light. And Carlo, if we break it down, the states are much more culpable, from FX importation to investment in agriculture and education. I think
do you have the floor, sir?
No, you don't have
Mr.
the floor.
Carlo Ajasa, good evening.
You don't have the floor, please. Hold on, somebody is speaking. Please go ahead, Olimide.
Yeah, so I think in retrospect, I think it's really showing that the Nigerian economy is in a big mess. And what gets me scared is that, when I look at the outlook from United Nations, that by the end of this decade, 82 million Nigerians will be hungry. And you look at the number of kids out of school, you don't need to be an economist or an analyst to say that a failed state system syndrome is already in play. And, for me, that is an active member in the capital market, and including you could see that it really tells on a lot, because we have investments in this country, and the way things are run, no business is run like that. When you have a state where the number of new cars are much more than the number of educational projects, when you have like the National Assembly, for example, since the administration has come to power, I have not seen any strong framework that has really helped the Nigerian economy, from the oil sector to the educational sector to the security sector. So, Carlo, it's really a deep, and it's getting really worrisome, because I don't know what else someone has to do. We've done the flexible approach, we've done the tower crying approach, we've done the aggressive approach, we've done the written approach, we've done the verbal approach.
Let me read you what someone sent me via DM now. Someone says, Kalu, Nigerians are not yet suffering. That Nigerians are going through hard times, but they are not yet suffering. That when Nigerians start to suffer, they will. Well, I don't read what he said there, but he's saying Nigerians are not yet suffering. We're just going through hard times. What's your take?
I think the guy is in. I think he's being extreme or he's joking. Either of the two, because I don't know what he means by that. I think he's just trying to make it look like if really. The issue is that it's not that Nigerians are not frustrated. You need to understand the cultural and the socio-economic characteristics of the Nigerian people. If you look at the middle class, for example, you see the middle class, for example, is divided into two. We have middle class, privileged middle class. Some people that come from, from the political family or the civil servants that have been able to go abroad. And you see many of them on Twitter talking about gender, talking about this, talking about these are the people. They are not hungry people. Now, these are people. So what I try to do is when I want to write stories or when I want to go deep into research, I speak with people that go down to the villages and people are crying, Kalu. There are some households that have not seen 50,000 naira in a month in this country. So you can't really look at that optics and say, hey, people. But and another issue is that because of the penetration of technology infrastructure, Money Point data, the NBS data has shown that penetration in the rural area is still very low. So we don't really get the true picture. But the reality is that, Carlo, people are hungry. The United Nations also said that about 65% of the average Nigerian budget is spent on food. When in an European city where I am, I spend less than 7-8%, Carlo. And I still complain, 7 to 8% of my budget goes on food a month. What really takes a chunk is my house bills. So when you have a Nigerian citizen spending 65% on food alone, how does that person invest? How does that person improve his kids' life? How does that person improve the Nigerian economy? How does that person become productive? And my fear is that, I've already called the high food inflation rate INA index because it makes the average Nigerian more aggressive. And if you know the story of the INA, see that the hungrier it becomes, the more aggressive it is. If it gets another 1,000 basis points, Carlo, I think we might not be able to have this conversation in a sane environment.
God, show him there. Okay, thanks. Hang in there. Thanks for that insight. Let me get Olayemi. Olayemi, you've got the floor. Olimde, I appreciate you just hanging there. I might have a question for you again. Olayemi, you've got the floor. Go ahead. Olayemi. Let's get K. Obasa, PhD. K. Obasa, how you doing? K. Obasa, how you doing, sir?
Yes, good evening, Carlo. Can you hear me?
I can hear you, sir. Please go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I think the question is very apt and is very timely, but I think that this, to make it reflect the current status what Nigeria is experiencing, Nigeria is not having a spending problem. We're actually having a humongous spending problem. Now, I use that adjective to describe it is because in a system where you have the spending, uncontrolled spending, a spending situation where there is lack of accountability, then you know that there is a bigger problem than the problem itself. Now, consider Nigeria as a project. For every item you spend, there should be a visible deliverable. I mean, we've had budgets and budgets are being implemented. Money is being allocated to several quarters in different areas. But at the end of the day, do we really see these deliverables? Is somebody somewhere accounting for these expenses? And if there is nobody accounting for these expenses and nobody to hold anybody responsible, then the problem is bigger than we ever think it is. I work in the program development sector. For every allocation that is being made, it is being scrutinized. Now, the executive send the budget to the National Assembly, and then you look at the review process. It is just like they stamp it, and then everything goes. Nobody takes time to actually scrutinize every item that is contained in the budget. And then at the end of the day, let's look at the monitoring process. For every project, it should be monitored from inception up to conclusion. For every item captured in the budget to be implemented. Talk about capital project. Do we see them being implemented, monitored, and then we get the deliverables, visible deliverables. We don't see that happening. And so you see the cycle of recurrent spending that is uncontrollable, unaccounted for, going on over and over again. Now the question is, what do we do? I had the first speaker who spoke after you made your submission that he's done voting, and then I looked at the chat and the response. Somebody said that is actually where they want to get you, and that is true. That's where they want to get you. Because in a system where you don't have accountability, everybody, they just want to get you exasperated, exhausted, and then you become hopeless. Oh, I did so very much the last time, hoping that I'm going to get the best results. Now I'm getting nothing. So why would I invest that again? But we as youth have a duty to really continue to stand up and keep working at every gathering, at every forum, to make sure that these people hear. Maybe someday we are going to get the result we desire. But for now, I think the damage that Nigeria and Nigerians are experiencing from the hands of our leaders is big. It's a real problem that must be tackled. Our institutions are not working. I mean, tell me, which of the institutions is working? I mean, working to reflect the status for which it was set to reflect? None. And so we continue to have that spending problem, and I don't know. I'm sorry I'm not being pessimistic, but I don't know if there is any end in sight. I don't know if there is any end in sight to the current status or the current level of uncontrollable and unaccountable expenditure that we are experiencing in the country.
I mean, there is. I hear you. I just want to make the point again that just to make sure I don't lose my chain of thought on that point you just highlighted. Why I asked that guy about the voting was I just had a sense that he was done, and I would have just confirmed, whatever you do, don't stop voting, don't stop being involved in the quote unquote politics, especially the local politics, these local governments, the states, the councillors.
Absolutely.
Don't ever stop, because these things are done to make you lose hope. When you lose hope, that's when braggarts, that's when the unelectables get into office, and then once they're in office, it's very hard to get them off. So please don't.
So the reason I even highlighted that young man's position was because he is not the only one that is in that particular position.
Yeah,
he is not the only one that has had it filled up to that level. So we owe ourselves that duty. I mean, I've had discussions. I mean, after the elections, I've had discussions with a couple of persons in the small gatherings, and then they will cite the past election. With all the effort we put in the last election, look at the mess we got. Why would you want to encourage me or tell me to go and vote again? And to be very honest, in a way, it is exhausting. They might be right in their position, but we still owe ourselves a duty. Even though I have said I don't see any end in sight to the current, the spending problem that we are having, we still owe ourselves a duty to continue to push forward to see that certain rights in certain quarters, certain wrongs in certain quarters are made right at the end of the day. I submit at that point. Thank you very much.
Appreciate that, guys. We want to make sure we keep the pressure up. The way it sounds quaint, but we only have a democracy, right? So that's the really only way you can get in through a democracy. So don't let it go.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Kehinde, you've got the floor. Thanks, Kay. Kehinde, you've got the floor. Go ahead, sir. Mr. Kehinde Adefulu. Going once. Naji 375491. How are you, sir? You've got the floor. Please go ahead, Naji. Okay, let's get Horla Valley. Did I get that right? Horla Valley. You've got the floor. Please go ahead, Horla Valley.
Good evening.
Hey, how you doing? Where are you calling in from?
I'm fine. From Osun.
Osun. How is Osun?
Osun is swag.
Is it the state of Osun or Osun State?
The state of Osun.
The state of Osun. Okay, go ahead, sir. You've got the floor.
To me, I would say Nigeria both have a spending and revenue problem.
We can't have both. In
my own theory, I feel this is like an intertwined case because the little revenue that we are generating, do you understand? I can't say we are generating enough revenue. The reasons are there are a lot of leakages in the remittances of the revenues that have been generated. And even most of these ministries are not even remitting it to the right places. So I feel that aspect, I would say we have a revenue problem. Now going down to the spending part of it, there are a lot of capital projects that we are not even supposed to be borrowing for. I hope you understand.
Go ahead, sir.
Can you?
I can hear you.
Okay. So, in my own opinion, I feel there is no way. How could a country be borrowing to finance its spending? And as an economics student, I feel we are qualified as an IMF member, right?
We are.
Yeah, and there are some certain rules. There are some boxes that we have to tick to get some funds from the IMF. So I'm still wondering, how are we able to get all these funds?
Nigeria is not borrowing from the IMF. We haven't borrowed from the IMF, I think, since 2000, I think. We're not borrowing from that. I get your point about borrowing. We're mostly borrowing from China, bilateral, and then Eurobonds. It's the Eurobonds one that is a problem because it's expensive. But in terms of IMF and the rest, not really a lot, yeah.
Okay. So, on the spending aspect, what I just feel is they should try to cut the cost.
Okay.
And try to generate more revenue.
Let me ask you a question. I don't want to put you on the spot. Just a question. How much do you think Nigeria makes? Federal government alone. How much do you think they make in a year? Let's pick, say, 2023. How much do you think? If someone just throw a figure in the air, how much do you think Nigerian federal government total revenues? What do you think it was in a particular year? Say 2023. Just a figure. Just your. What do you think?
I know the figures will be in billions. To be in billions, I can't really put a figure to it.
It's 1 trillion, a lot of money. 1 trillion naira.
It's no. That's not a lot to even finance the government.
What of 5 trillion?
5 trillion. I can't say it's enough to finance the government.
What of 7 trillion?
It's still not enough.
What about 11 trillion?
I can't put a figure to it.
No, but I'm saying, do you think 11 trillion is enough to finance the federal government's operations for 1 year? 11 trillion.
Naira?
Yes.
Yes, I think it is enough. Okay. If they cut the cost.
So the revenue of the revenue of the federal government of Nigeria is about 11 trillion. That's what they are making. 11 trillion. 11 trillion. But you see the problem. So how much do you think again is the total salaries? Just salary alone. Let's not do roads, just salary alone. What do you think is salary for 1 year for the federal government? Just salaries alone.
The salaries for the federal government?
Alone, yes. Just salaries alone.
Oh, that's outrageous.
How much do you think?
I'll have to check.
It's about 4 trillion.
4 trillion naira for the salaries alone.
Yes, MDA's salaries alone is about 3.965 trillion. So the point I'm making to you is that the 11 trillion we got from the total revenues, we're already spending nearly 4 trillion on only salaries, not roads, not debt, not pensions, just to pay monthly salary. So the question now is that, do you think the problem is that we should make that 11 trillion 20 trillion, or should we go to the salary people and say, I think we should reduce your salary? What do you think? Keep in mind that oil we're now pumping less oil today than we pumped, quote unquote, yesterday. So what do you, if you are the CEO, you run a company, your income is going down, your salary is going up, what would be your suggestion to move for 1 year?
To cut the cost, you have to show the people that, okay, this is starting from me. It is not starting from you.
Good.
Just like what the president of Argentina did.
Good.
So
good.
Things like that are even the things that the salary earners will see. Although there will be some rumbles, there will be some actions that will go after it.
Okay.
But with time, when they see that, okay, the person that brought out this policy, he or she or the ministries, they are really doing it to themselves. So it will be really hard on the people to turn a new leaf and follow the new policy that is being bring out.
Perfect answer. So I think you got it right. So you in 5 minutes have diagnosed the problem. That the problem is not just the revenues, it's the spending. And according to you, we should go ahead and lead by example and start to cut down spending so that there's reduction in the spending. You did it in like 5 minutes. You did it in 5 minutes. You have no aids, you have no PowerPoint. You just summarized it. So thank you for that. I appreciate you doing that. Thank you, sir. Olayemi, thanks. I called you. I think you were not online. I don't know if you can speak now, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Yes, go ahead.
So let me start by apologizing for interjecting earlier.
Not a problem,
I wasn't sure how this worked. I thought you had called me, so it wasn't intentional. So apologies to everyone. It's been a very insightful conversation, and I've enjoyed every bit of it. I've heard the arguments from both sides of the divide, and I have to confess they're very compelling. But my personal opinion is this. I think even though Nigeria has a spending problem, I think we have a much bigger revenue problem. And I'm going to demonstrate this. Nigeria currently has a population of around 200 million people. And as at the last budget, the estimated revenues of the federal government is around 10 trillion naira. If I divide 10 trillion by 200 million, I get 50,000 naira. What does this mean? It means the federal government has just 50,000 naira to spend on every Nigerian for a whole year.
Okay, can I interject at that point?
I'd rather I finish the chain of thought than give you a time to respond, if you don't mind. Do you mind?
No, sir. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. I'm not an economist, but I'm an accountant. I'm a CPA. I'm an FCA. I'm also a CGMA. Right, so I have about 4 designations. So I understand accounting, I understand revenues, I understand expenditure, I understand budgeting. Right. Now, let's just oppose this with a country like Canada. I currently live in Canada. Canada has an estimated population of 40 million people. If I take the revenue of the federal government of Canada and I divide it by that 40 million individuals, it comes to around 10 million naira per person per year. So clearly, even to the blind, it's clear that we have a huge revenue problem. And we need to solve that. It's also important for us to solve the expenditure problem, the spending problem. But I think a more critical and urgent problem is the revenue problem. It's like a family earning 5,000 naira per month, and you're telling them cut cost. What are they going to cost? What are they going to cut? To feed for a week will probably take 5,000 naira. So even if they cut 100% of their cost, they are still going to be in poverty. They are still going to live in penury. And that's the situation Nigeria is in right now. And also, if you cut costs, if you cut in a country like Nigeria, the kind of economy we run, in my opinion, if you cut government spending too quickly, you might have an economy that will contract significantly. Because most of the economic activities in the country center around the government. So for me, I think it's very good that you have discussions like this. But when The kind of conversation we should be having is helping the government find out how they can expand their revenue base, increase their revenue generating activities. And I think once we have that, then we can start talking about plugging the gaps, plugging the leaks, and that will help. And that's my opinion. Thank you very much.
Don't go anywhere. I think you make a very, very valid point that, listen, if you simply take the revenues of the federal government divided by the population, you get that number there. But a few points. Number one, the 10 trillion is only for the federal government. In Nigeria, the states and the local governments earn more. Federal government gets about 48 or 42. States and local government gets more via FAC. So if we take 100 naira, states and local governments get more than the federal. So that 50 would have to add what the state governments and the local governments are spending per Nigerian to get an accurate number. But again, they're going to counter to say that, listen, you compared federal with Nigeria and Canada. So that point should not stand. You say that. But then let's look at what Canada is spending money on, which is where we now have the discussion. What is Canada or even the US spending money on? Social services. So for every 100 naira that comes to America, about 23 goes to social security, 23 or maybe goes to health and human services, then they have their military, then they have all that, right? If you flip the scale for Nigeria, we've given you the figures, out of every 100 naira that comes to Nigeria, about 44 naira goes to salaries of only federal workers. So it's not just the 50,000 as a problem, it's who are these 50? It is only going to federal workers. A person living in Niger State, in Bida, in a small local government does not feel the effect of that 50,000 naira at all. But a person living in Chattanooga, in Canada, is going to feel the impact of that 10 million. The point I make is this: if you flipped it and you brought the 10 million naira the Kenyan would earn to Nigeria, the 10 million would go to the civil servants in Nigeria, not the guy in the local government in Nigeria. That's the problem. It's not the naira proportion per se, but where that money is going to, which is the topic, the spending problem or the revenue problem. If you increase Nigeria's revenue by $1 trillion today, can you say under cost of maybe they would, can you say under the, I don't know what to use now, that the Nigerian National Assembly will not buy a private jet for each National Assembly member and build an airport in their local government areas to allow them do oversight? No Nigerian can say for a fact that will not happen. In Canada and America, I can say for a fact it will not happen. In Nigeria, I can't say for a fact. So let me, what do you say?
Thank you very much for your response. It's a very intriguing one and very interesting one. And I do agree with you that the Western governments, a good chunk of their spending goes to social services, which is commendable. But in Nigeria, I think over time, we've realized that our government is not very efficient at allocating resources to these social services. So I think indirectly, what we then do is to pay salaries, and it then trickles down to the grassroots people. I think there's something called domino effect in economics. So if you, by any chance, cut that salary payments, some states will collapse. So for each civil servant you have in Nigeria, you have at least 100 people depending directly or indirectly on them. So even though in countries like Canada, they have a well-structured system, they call it social welfare, they give you childcare benefits. In Nigeria, it is unstructured. It is by paying salary to as many people as possible so that the money can filter down. So it's still the same thing. And that brings me back to the main problem, which is the revenue. We need to increase the revenue at all levels in Nigeria. We may need to tax more people. We may need to move away from just refining resources, extracting natural resources and selling. We need to think together as a people, come up with ways of increasing the revenue of the government. And when that happens, it's going to trickle down and everyone will feel the effects. But I don't think cutting costs right now. It's sensational. It's interesting. We can do like the Argentina government. How much is the airplane for a new government? If you cut that, what impact would that have in an economy of our size? I'm not saying I don't encourage extravagant spending on the part of leaders or rulers. I don't encourage that. But I'm saying we shouldn't spend too much time chasing after the wrong problem. And there are instances I give people financial advice, and there are some families that tell me, oh yeah, I lost my revenue, I lost my source of income, so my next strategy is how to cut costs. I tell them that is not your priority for now. You should look for how you can regain your source of income, and that's the problem with Nigeria. We have lost a good chunk of our source of income. So the story should not be, or the solution should not be right now, how do we cut costs? I think the solution should be, how do we get back that revenue that we lost, and how do we increase it? That's my opinion. Thank you very much.
Okay, and again, just last one, just before I let you go, just last one. So let's look at the actuals now. So if we take your point that yes, that I think the word you're looking for was a marginal propensity to consume or to invest. So if you pay salaries in, say, Yobe State or Ebonyi State, the salaries go further because that's the only source of income in those sectors. I get the point you're making, completely correct. The point I'm making again is let's go back to Nigeria and say, okay, Nigeria has got what we call the universal basic education, where the federal government puts up money and says if the states want to invest in education, bring $1 billion and take $1 billion from the federal government and then go build schools. So you bring 1 naira, you get 1 naira, you go build schools. So that's revenue sitting there for you to go take. If you pull up the UBE allocations in Nigeria, you'll be shocked at the states that have not taken that UBE revenues. You'll be shocked. And there's a particular state, I don't want to mention the name of the state, I don't want to get people accused of being political. The state has not accessed UBE, but the state is building a federal airport. So the state is partnering with the federal government to build an airport for private jets, but has not accessed the UBE funds that are lying there to build schools for the people. It goes back again to this point, sir, and this is the point we can't really escape from, that if we increase the revenues to the households in Nigeria, they will spend properly. But if we increase the revenues to the government of Nigeria, they have not shown the capacity to spend more. That's the problem. When Nigeria in 1970s, and I want to get my dates right, I believe it was the 1970s, when Nigeria had the Yom Kippur War and oil prices went up. Nigeria had the problem where Gowon was saying our issue is not money, but where to spend it. In that period, sir, Nigeria did not increase allocation to education. They did not. We did not. So we'll have to maybe disagree. I just think the problem, sir, is we are not spending the little we have properly. If we increase revenues today, it will still be wasted. That's why people don't pay tax in Nigeria, because they don't trust the taxman to take that revenue and to spend it properly. But sir, I do agree with the point you're making, and I thank you.
Sorry, can you just add something?
Yeah, please go.
Just to buttress what you said, I think what every wise, I'm not talking from a market perspective, what every wise policy maker will tell you is that what you use with $1 is what you use with $1,000. If you look at biblical Joseph, for example, one of the things that made him the most successful prime minister in Egypt was the allocation of resources. He knew when to save, he knew when to spend. You see, the argument like the guy from Canada is saying is that we all know we have a revenue problem.
We all know.
Mention an S&P 500 company that does double. I can give you 100, double. You know, I was looking at numbers of Bloomberg, for example. Bloomberg is making more money than the federal government. Almost double. So the question here is that we're not saying we don't have a revenue problem, but see, even Jesus said that the person with 1 talent that buried his talent was taken away from him and given to the guy that had 10 talents. If you cannot make good resources with the 1 talent, sorry, revenue won't go up. And that is why, if you understand investment, when investors see a management team spending unnecessary, despite the fact that they have reserves. It becomes an issue. Why do you think Apple, Microsoft, Google are one of the most valuable companies? Apart from their margins, they know how to spend money. They save operational costs. They reduce costs. Look at what Meta did to their metaverse. They shut it down when it was losing money. The problem in Nigeria is that we have so many unfunctional projects, and the elite and the children of the elite, they don't even have time for the public. Because see, look on our daily needs. What are the headlines? It should be food inflation. It should be basic education. If we're not talking about gender war, we're talking about someone that is spending 200,000 on a celeb. We're talking about people's weddings. So we have issues. We have cultural issues. We have social economic issues. We have political issues. We have mental issues. We have spiritual issues. Because if you don't look at things holistically, you will not get the picture. Every country, look at what is happening in Europe. The right are trying to chase immigrants away because they're tired of people. And rather than Africa sitting down and thinking like what the Chinese did in the 80s, they are still playing around and thinking that we buy 2 passports, we buy 3 passports, we are getting insurance. And we've forgotten that the color of our skin can never change. So we need people that really understand the dynamics of the future, not just bringing out numbers. And that is the problem we are having in the Nigerian economy.
Gotcha. I think it's a good discussion.
Can I make a contribution?
Tunji, is that you?
Yes, Mr. Lardner here. Tunji Lardner.
Yeah, Tunji,
yes.
Go ahead. Mr. Lardner, I appreciate the comments. Really, really do. Tunji, go ahead.
Thank you. I think that we're missing the elephant in the living room. The problem with Nigeria, and I say that guardedly, is not so much as a spending problem or a revenue problem. It's an accountability and accounting problem. Accountability in the much larger sense in which some of your speakers have expanded is not just a purely financial issue. There's a social, political dimension of it which we don't want to talk about. And that's the elephant in the living room. You're talking about the hard numbers, about the fiscal and financial policy of Nigeria. Those are just numbers. They mean nothing. If you do not deal with the issue of holding our political elite accountable, we're not going to get anywhere, because it doesn't matter how much you put into the pool, the management, the mindset of the leaders means that it will just waste it. We cannot generate revenue because of the institutional corruption there is in the system. And the thing that I'm getting a feeling in just listening to these conversations, and this is not the first time I've been in this kind of a forum, is that there's a loss of agency. Nigerians are always talking about Nigeria as if it's some other country. Even the comparisons you make are totally unrealistic. Comparing Nigeria to Canada, comparing Nigeria to Meta, it's a non sequitur. The key thing here that is missing is a social contract between the citizen and the states. The states itself, we know, is irresponsible to that extent, yes. But you, the citizens, you want all the rights, but you don't want the attendant responsibilities of holding your leaders accountable. You don't want to have the attendant responsibility of accounting and making sure that people and policies and institutions are held accountable. You're making all the analogies between the federal government. What about the state governments? You just said, talked about the state that is not, buying into the universal basic education scheme, but building an airport. The problem here is the agency of the citizens. We cannot be demanding rights without the attendant responsibilities, number one. Number two, we should stop this displacement activity of thinking that somebody else is going to come and solve our problems, or that we as citizens are not responsible for this. So I could go on and on, but the bottom line for me is that the challenge here is not issue of just the technical, fiscal, financial problem of revenue and expenditure. It is really one of accounting. How do you account for the health of the nation itself collectively? And accountability. How do you hold your political leaders accountable? But you can't do that if you do not hold yourself personally accountable for the welfare.
Let me say this also, right? Most Nigerians, and I'm saying this respectfully, do not know the numbers or what to even hold to account. I don't know if you were here from the very beginning where I listed the federal government's income statement actual for 2023, where we said that the total oil revenues of Nigeria cannot pay salaries, the total revenues of Nigeria cannot pay debt service. I just asked a young man now how much he thought were the income for Nigeria. He didn't know. I told him the incomes. I asked him what was salaries. He didn't know. He's a Nigerian. He's a patriot. But the point is that if you don't know the numbers or the facts, then how do you hold people accountable? How many people understand that their local government areas and how many people know what their local government makes a month?
But the point you are stating a problem that is looking for a solution. Within this 300 people who are listening in, there's a collective capacity to be able to bring out those numbers and create an alternative platform where we know you cannot manage what you don't know. I mean, what was that your term in management? Right? You can't manage what you can't manage what you can't measure.
You said creating a problem.
Information is there.
What are we doing here? What are we doing here, Tunji? What are we doing here?
What I'm saying, we're having a talk shop about revenue and all of that. We are talking about a young man who does not know. Well, provide the platform so that people can know and make.
That's what we're doing here.
Wait, listen, I am not asking you. Just calm down. I'm saying we all have a collective responsibility towards knowing, right? And you are leading the charge, and we're all following you, right? I noticed that there are almost 300 people on this platform. Surely, even if we take 10% of that, that is what, 30, right? Can come together for the sake of this country. We have CPAs, we have accountants, we have people with masters in public administration. There's a whole body of knowledge just embedded here, but we're not organizing that knowledge. We're not putting it out there. Instead, we are complaining the problem with Nigeria Conversation 212. Where is the agent?
Tunji,
wait, listen to me.
I've listened to you. I've listened to you.
It is a critique, and it's a critique of all of us. I'm not criticizing you. This is a wonderful platform, and kudos to you. I follow you. I see your very pithy, very informed and enlightened comments, right? But what I'm saying, the task is larger. We have to take it to another level. There's a grant. I've been talking to a friend of mine, doing Salami, about doing a report on the informal sector of Nigeria. When we talk about Nigeria and the physical, financial, whatever, we never factor in the informal sector, where most Nigerians earn their livelihood from. There's no reports that comprehensively. There's one now by Money Point, I think, which I saw the other day. But these are some of the large numbers. Let us fight with facts.
I get you. I hear you. I'm not defending myself. I'm saying I don't want us to go into borderline shaming the victim. Borderline. That's why I'm actually going to. For me, it's not a problem. I'm just saying there are issues. And the one big issue in Nigeria is the lack of information on finances. People say things in Nigeria and just put it out there. The government just told Nigerians that in 12 months, we'll have 2 million barrels of crude a day. In 12 months. It's not going to happen. And they have based spending 2 trillion naira on achieving 2 million barrels of crude. It's not going to happen, which means they are going to borrow to ensure that money that they are going to spend happens. It's going to come back in a year's time. We'll have this same space, and I'll say debt has gone up. Then people like, how come debt went up? I'm seeing people saying that $5 billion is going to come to Nigeria because Nigeria has a headquarters of an energy bank. And people say, wonderful, Tinubu is working, $5 billion. These things are not true. The same way at the beginning of the year, the CBN was making Naira stronger by borrowing dollars. What we are trying to do is to give people, and again, I'm not defending myself, people want to know what to do. If you tell people physical, they don't understand what that means. You've got to break it down, then people can take action. SAP riot was not caused by SAP. If you Mr. Chindatin, I think you're old enough, sir. SAP riot, we all know, was caused by a report that the first lady had a watch factory in Switzerland. It wasn't caused by the effect of SAP or people sat down and said inflation is too much. That's what people move. So people in Nigeria do not have cogent information or do not understand the economics of what happens. People don't connect taxation with what's going on in their wallets. And this is what we're trying to bridge.
Well, I think that's the next level of work that has to be done. Some kind of a much more accessible treatise on financial literacy and the whole business of public sector finance and how it affects them. You have to be able to establish the causality between all of these numbers that are running around and the fact that we don't feel it in our own pockets at the ground level. I mean, I learned something today about the way in which we provide our social services is to make sure we pay salaries, and there's a trickle-down, there's an assumption of a trickle-down effect embedded in the salaries. What we're saying is that we're all dancing around the key issue, right? And that issue is, how do you redesign a bigger and better Nigeria? Even if you start from the entry point of revenue and expenditure, right? It will lead you to the same set of challenges. And what I'm throwing to your own generation, right? And thank you for the SAP thing, we were there, and that was a while ago.
Yep.
But is that we have to start thinking differently about these problems. You have to use fresh eyes and looking at old problems, right? I'll leave you guys with just two quotes. These are my two famous quotes. The very first one is very popular. Most people know it. You can't keep doing this thing over and over and you expect different results, right? We know that. The second one is attributable to Einstein. And he says, you can't solve a problem thinking at the level that caused that problem. Right now, the conversation mostly is thinking, they were talking about it at the level that caused the problem. Our leaders are trying to solve problems thinking below the level that caused those problems. We can never solve those problems. So we have to up our game and think beyond the level that caused this problem. These problems are chronic.
Gotcha.
They've been there since 1960. You understand what I'm saying? So
the
challenge for you, for a younger generation, is to look at this thing differently and say, okay, we've been doing the same thing over and over. Mentally, there has to be a mindset switch. We can't be expecting different results. It's a mindset thing. It's not the problem at some level. Again, to give you another set of
no, Tunji, we gotta rotate the room. We gotta rotate the room, Tunji.
Yeah, sorry, but that's my 2 cents. Well, thank you for this forum, and thank you for listening, allowing me to say my speech. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Appreciate that, Tunde. Really do, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Ade Inde Tinuke, PhD. How are you doing, ma'am? Yes, ma'am. Doctor, please go hop in.
Yeah, I'm here. Can I talk?
Yes, ma'am. You can. Please go ahead.
Can I talk now? Okay. Good morning. It's been a while.
Yes,
Am I being heard?
Yes, you are, ma'am.
All right. Thank you. This is your topic. You know, you come up with an important topic like this, and I like to listen and learn. But of all of this, does Nigeria have a spending problem? If you focus on this very question directly, you will give one very simple answer. Nigeria do have spending problem, no revenue. Yeah, we do need to invest more in Nigeria. So we do have a little of a revenue problem because we are not generating as much as we would have generated if you look at Nigeria with all the mineral resources we have, the manpower that we have. You will say we are underperforming as a nation. We are not doing everything we are supposed to be doing, right? Because there is theft in the oil industry. The ministers are stealing money. You know, the customs are overcharging the importers and all of that stuff. So we are not doing well. But when it comes to spending, you look at every other aspect our government is focusing on spending money. They pick the most, the most unimportant things, and then they spend money on it. You remember, does anyone remember how much Buhari spent trying to discover oil in the north?
$3 billion, about $1 billion conservatively, just to be conservative.
Exactly. Now that is wastage. You spend all of that. There is oil already in Nigeria. We have oil already. We have not finished that oil. We are still getting about 2-point-something billion barrel per day, something like that, right? And then you are looking for more oil.
There is no oil. There was no oil there to start with. If there was oil there, Shell would have been there. We told them a long time ago. Shell is not stupid.
Exactly. Exactly. So that is a very huge wastage. Now we have this other waste where we hear news like the federal government is giving 50 billion to poor, and then you just hear news like this. They said they are giving 50,000 per family. These things are a huge waste of resources.
It's theft,
and you are spending money where you are not supposed to spend it, because the people you are giving 50,000 to, it is a stipend. They can't even spend it for a week. The money is exhausted. If you can create job that is tangible, that these people can work and make money for themselves, if they are...
Ooh, I think we lost you. I can hear you. Is it just me? Olumide, can you hear her?
No, she's gone.
Oh, sorry about that. Let me get Ayam Ajunwa. Madam Doctor, I think we lost you. Let me get Ayam Ajunwa to speak. Ayam Ajunwa, hey, go ahead.
Okay, good evening, Carlo. Thanks for the opportunity. In fact, can you hear me?
I can, sir.
Okay, in fact, when you mentioned that we spend 4 trillion on salaries, I just got angry. I didn't even plan to talk. I just got angry. You mean we spent about 40% of our earnings on salary? 44. Who are the people?
So MDA workers.
So I don't know. I operate in the informal sector. I don't think that I will say that when like 20% of my profits will be on salary. So it doesn't just make sense. And the thing is, a lot of people in these ministries have no business being there. I can tell you that the effective people, brilliant people, who are really doing the work are not up to 20%. The rest don't know what they are doing. They just sit down there and collect money. And these are the issues that we for me, if you say, okay, fire them, right? There may be chaos and all that. But if we can be creative, create new opportunities and push them there, we should be having agricultural revolution like the Niger State government, right? Cultivating about 250,000. Send all of them there. They should go and learn how to drive tractor, do other things, and get busy. You cannot spend 40% of your earnings on salary. It shows that these people are not effective. They are not efficient at all. And I hear when people say FARC is making state governors lazy. The thing is, they are not lazy. A lot of them are clueless. Because you cannot, if you really love money, you will want to work hard. You want to see opportunities. Take, for instance, Davido. Davido's father is very rich. But Davido is one of the most hardworking artists around. He didn't just sit down there because his father had money. Right? He's working very, very hard. Harder than a lot of people, a lot of the artists who came from. But that is the point. That is the point. It is who you are. So a lot of the people who are leading us at the state level are very, very clueless. They are very, very clueless. I don't think anybody can ask you. Because let's say, IGR. Who will question your IGR? Why can't you generate 200 billion every month and still 20 billion? I don't think anybody will know. But you don't want to generate because you are clueless. It's not because you are lazy that you are getting free money, you are lazy. It's not that. That is not true. And when they talk about, I know somebody talk about the 4 trillion trickle down to the economy. That 4 trillion is not doing anything. Do you know the diaspora remittance, which are around 20 billion annually? That is what is sustaining this country. If you take that away, this country will shut down. I grew up in Benin. I don't think, for about over almost 10 years, I've not stayed in Benin. I know for sure that a lot of the banks that came, they did not come because there are industries. I don't even think there are industries in Benin to match the banks that are there. What are they living on? Diaspora remittance. That's what is keeping Edo State running. That's what is keeping even Delta State running. That is keeping the human beings, not the government. That is what is keeping them running.
Yeah, I hear you.
Do you understand?
I hear you.
So that diaspora remittance is the life of this country. It is free money. The day that money ceases,
it's free money.
This country will fall down.
Yeah. So
I think that's all I have to say for now. But it's very, very annoying that you use 40% only to pay inefficient people. I don't just get it.
Let me just make this point, right? Honestly to the comments, right? If you pay salaries, it's a stimulative effect. Especially in the states of the federation where there's no economic activity. I mean, what is in, say, Ohafia local government area in Abia State? If you pay salaries there, you are bringing income there, there's consumption there. So economics says that's a good thing to do. The problem is it's not done properly and it's not linked to anything. If you are paying salaries and there are no roads, there's no power for those guys to take that salary and buy a small tractor and then start to farm cassava, they are just pouring water into a basket. So it's the linkages that is a problem. In the UK, they pay the dole. If you're unemployed, you get unemployment wages. Still in America, you get unemployment wages. So it's not a new thing to do. And those economies are more developed than ours. But we aren't doing ours properly. If salaries are welfare, then make it so. Employ 1 million people and pay them salaries. And let's say it is welfare. Every month you get oil revenues, you take out 40%, you say it's for welfare, you pay them, then you reduce costs. Everybody knows this is what it's all about. Don't call it employment. Create a civil service that is elitist, that is professional, that is very, very productive, and separate them from the welfare. You can't turn the Federal Ministry of quote unquote to a welfare scheme. You can't put people there to get a job. People go to get a job now. People can't get a job in a bank. Oh, go and see this minister, he'll give you a job. So you go to many ministries, there are unqualified people working there. As to your other suggestion, in Cuba, when Fidel Castro took over, he sent everybody, young, old, everybody went to teach the guys in rural areas how to read and write. You have people working in ministries, you should be teaching. Take everybody out, go to your local government area, federal government will pay you salary, start a school, teach reading and writing. We have 10 million plus kids out of school. So there are 10 million kids that you can open up a school. You're in a federal ministry of whatever. If you're not productive, package the person to his hometown, give him money to build a school, let him stay there and become a teacher, and teach the kids maths and English. You don't need AI for now, just maths and English. Start from there and let's see what's going to happen. I've got Chi Beneficials. Chi, is that you? Chi, got the floor going once, Chi going twice. Let's get Yote, Mr. Yote at 8 for real.
Hello, good evening.
How you doing? Good evening,
Hello.
sir. Okay, I think Chi hopped in. Yeah. Chi, go ahead. Yote, I'll take you next. Chi, you've got the floor. Go ahead.
Yeah, hello. Good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. I can hear you. Please go ahead. I can hear her. Yote, please go ahead. I can't hear you, Chi. Yote, go ahead.
Okay. So I think for me, the answer to the question is Nigeria does have a spending problem. Because if we put the money that we have in the right place, then we can stimulate growth and then get revenue. So if we invest in infrastructure, if we create policies that allow people to get return from whatever it is that they invest in, then we have a multiplier effect, and then we have more revenue at the time. But the problem we've had in Nigeria for so long is that the spending is to a level that is almost parasitic, if not parasitic. People spend recklessly, and there's no accountability. So I think that's the pain of our problem in Nigeria. And until we can fix this, I really can't see a way forward for us as a people. Now, I heard someone say earlier that it is the responsibility of the people to hold the people in governments accountable. But I think what the problem is that democracy really is a numbers game. And so if the majority of the people are not aware of the power that they hold in a democracy, then the minority who are in power will use them as cannon foders, really. They're just tools that they use to get into position, and hold power by themselves, or when they leave, by their proxies. So until there is a mass awakening, across, let's say, our brothers and sisters in Nigeria, then this will keep going on and going on and going on. The way it was in the time of our parents is the way it will be in the time of our children, our generations to come. And I think a solution to this really is what we see during elections, which is what we saw during what we saw Peter do with LP, which is grassroots outreach, And I think there's someone on Twitter who does this, who's trying to do General Uchi, which is getting people to create awareness by people that they're close to, so people around them. And it's to have that multiplier effect again, where people know their power. Now, for me, I think as a people, our strongest democratic tool is through the legislator. So the legislators are the only elected officials that we can recall. We don't have to wait every 4 years to elect someone into position. But most people don't even know who's their representative. If they know their representative, they can tell them that these issues that we have in our community, we don't have water. What are you doing there in the House of the Senate? If you're not going to speak for us about our issues, then come back home. And then we'll have someone who can, voice out the issues that they all know, by the way, in the House. And then we can see an effect. The check and balance thing we talked about, that the people in the legislative can impeach the president if they feel like the president is taking steps that doesn't benefit the whole country. So if we have people that reflect the mind of the people in the legislature, then I feel like that is the easiest way for us to move forward as a nation. Now, another point I'll raise is that the system is flawed.
Let's get you a round up if you don't mind, yeah? Real quick, yeah?
Sorry?
Let me get you a round up if you don't mind, so I can rotate the room, yeah?
Okay, I'll just make this last point and then I'll round up. And that's it. So, the system is flawed in a way, or it's flawed on purpose. So the legislative, or the people who benefit from the system that is corrupt, unfortunately are the people in positions to make the change that will benefit all of us, right? And so I saw you tweet earlier, which is that the cost of running the bicameral parliament is too much to go back to the parliamentarian system. And that makes absolute sense. We saw what happened in England. They voted for their representative, and then the following day we knew who was the prime minister, and then we had a new prime minister. So unfortunately, people that can make this happen are the people that benefit from corruption. So until we Nigerians realize that, this democracy that we call power to the people, we realize the true meaning of it, I think it will really be a really long road to freedom for us. That'll be all from there.
Gotcha. Again, we got to look at the cost of the governance in Nigeria. I don't think Nigeria can afford a U.S.-style democracy. We'll have a president, VP, two houses, Senate and House, then governors, then state governors. I don't think we can afford it. I prefer the British system where we have MPs. Go to your place, get elected, come to Abuja. Exactly. From the elected guys, we form our ministers from there. So we cut away ministers. We can even the house would expand. It will be much, much bigger than what it is today. Or maybe even 1,000 seats. But we can't run this. What we have right now, we can't afford it. It's not whether it's good or bad. We simply can't afford it. We just like we can't afford the Rolls Royce. So let's just move away from this Western thing of House of Assembly that don't do anything. It's a waste of money, if you ask me. Everything Satoshi, welcome to our party. How are you feeling? What's your take on this? Everything Satoshi, are you there? Going once, going twice. Mr. Olubanji. Mr. Olubanji, hi. How you doing, sir? Did you have a comment? Dev BIT.
Oh, yeah. Good. It's Olabanji.
Sorry about that. I apologize. Yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much for giving me the mic, right? I think this is my second time on your space, and I will always love coming back, because I would usually learn a lot on the space, right? So, my contribution will be a little bit slightly off context, right? Because I think I'm more of, this kind of person that I believe in. Let's be doing, let's do something rather than speaking too much of grammar. Apologies, right? So I feel like in this country, this is not just happening right now. It has been happening over and over and over and over, right? So talking about generating more revenue, and then talking about spending too much from our leaders, right? It's not something that just spring up overnight. This is something that has become reoccurrence activities, right? So I feel like instead of us speaking too much of grammar, this is a space right here now, a space like this where we can sensitize each other, and then where we can come up with a strategy, an active strategy for us to actually take actions. Look at what is happening in Kenya currently, right? So we can actually speak to government democratically, with one voice. So I feel like if we preach more of unity, it sounds more like an household terminology that has been in place over the years, right? We are not seeing that in action, but how about we use platform like this to preach more of unity so that we can speak with one voice.
Unity of what?
When I say unity, right? Because some people, we are looking at what is currently happening in Kenya. These guys are speaking with one voice, and then they are trying to change things around. And if you see it, there is results, right? Because the bill that the administration.
But what are you trying to say? What do you mean by unity? What are you saying we should do? Because we're just talking money, economics, finance here. We're just giving information to folks like you. What are you implying?
Okay, so when I mention unity, right? If we are to hit the street right there now and say, okay, we want to pull up a protest.
I don't want to go there. Let me just stick to the. I don't want to go there. I don't want to. Yeah.
All right. No problem.
The space exists to give information, right? So if you want to do whatever you want to do, at least you come here with a note or you listen to the tape recordings. You will get information. So that's why I let everyone speak. You hear the good side, you hear the other side, and you can say, okay, I want to use this as my platform. Then you can do whatever you want to do. But we just want to make sure we give you information on this space. Afribull, you've got your hand up.
All right. I'm loving the information, actually.
Gotcha. Not a problem. Yeah, I hear.
We always love to come listening to people, with different, diverse opinion, right? I love that.
Gotcha.
In terms of, the spending, I feel like government can cut down spendings, right? Frivolous things, that is literally affecting the whole nation, the whole populace as a whole, right? Cutting down ministries is one of them, right? There are some ministries they can collapse together and the likes, So I feel like the spending on the part of the government, if we advocate more on that, they can cut down some spending. Just like, the previous speakers, they've mentioned it. I wouldn't want to be, going that route again. So it doesn't sound like repetition, right? So I feel like there is too much of spending, frivolous spending from the government, side, which they can cut down on. And then, of course, generating more revenue as well, right? And then we as citizens, we are doing our duties, right? So, with that, I feel like we can get it right maybe one day, but there is, like I said, when I collected your mic, I said my own contribution is actually coming from another,
I got you, Limber.
So, yeah,
no problem.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Let me get Yusuf Fibro. Hi, I don't know if you can hear me. Yusuf, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everyone.
How are you doing, sir? Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Abuja.
Abuja. How is Abuja today? I saw a video with fuel lines. Do you guys have fuel scarcity back in Abuja?
Wow, yes. You go, you will not buy fuel for like 4 hours, 5 hours.
In Abuja.
Happy to join this platform, and Mr. Kalu, whatever you are saying is true, and that's why so many people on this platform, I follow you for a very long time, and they are bashing you from here to there, but all what you are saying is true. Let me tell you something, Mr. Kalu. Nigeria, we are not serious. And why I say we are not serious, I'll give you an example. 2016, when Buhari want to ban importation of rice, we say give us time. They give us time. We came out with a fantastic document. The document that we came out with, Mr. Kalu, now, a prisoner, what is the answer? You know, in abroad, maybe the prisoners, they eat a good food. But you go to all Nigerian prisons, they don't eat good food. Honestly, even a dog eat better food than a prisoner. I'm sorry to say that, because I entered there, we do our investigation, we know how what is happening. And our federal government allocate billions of naira. And those billions of naira go down the drain. People eat the money. We say, okay, now you want to ban importation of rice. Okay, let's do something about it. We now came out with good recommendation. We pick like KB, Zamfara, other places that farm rice. Federal Ministry of Agriculture open this thing, farm settlement there. A prisoner that was sentenced 5 years, let him spend, if he spent 2 years in the prison, let him go and spend the remaining 3 years in farm settlement. There you train him. After you train him, open account for him with his BVN, be giving him some allowance every month, but don't give him cash. Don't allow him to have access to that money until when he is done with his sentences. When he go, he have 400, 500,000 naira, he will not go back to crime. But what happened to those documents? Those documents, they are there. They did not even look at it. If to say we follow this recommendation, but now we're talking about food, the scarcity of food. So rather the government spending money for building airports. I used to surprise Zamfara. Look at Ebonyi State Airport. I went to Ebonyi. I went like 2-3 weeks ago. I saw that airport. I was shocked and surprised. They spent billions of naira. Former governor of Akwa Ibom State, instead of him to build a refinery, he built the biggest church. I'm sorry to say that. Look at my state, Taraba State. That God give us a good land, very fertile land. But the governors, they rather come to Abuja. Maybe this man now, he's trying small. That's what people say. But the truth here is that the government are not serious. One of the speakers is saying that people should pay tax. My brother, if you are paying tax and you know what that money is being channeled to, you will pay more. But Nigeria, you will pay the tax. Some people will steal the money. I can tell you, I know, this is first hand. Some of those ministries, some of the good ministers, they will, okay, the money that the EFCC are retrieving from people, where are the money? They will not tell you. So many bank charges. Okay, PPP that go to some account. We know all about that money. Where the money is going? People are not asking. They charge money. They will do some let's say if you do some withdrawal, they charge you money. Where are the money going? They will tell you security. How many weapons they buy? How many platform did they buy?
I hear you.
Nothing. So, hello?
No, I hear you, Yusuf. I'm just saying, yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
So the truth here is that in Nigeria we are not serious, and the government look at now Almajiri. This our
Yusuf,
not the
Yusuf,
problem that I'm having. This Almajiri.
Yusuf,
small boys. Sir?
I want you to round up, yeah, if you don't mind.
Okay. Small children begging. What is the government doing? The whole world, you cannot see where people are begging. Almajiris are begging. It's only in Nigeria you see. I've been to so many countries. I have not seen any Almajiri. Even this Nigeria, they don't have Almajiris. But when you come to Nigeria here, see small children, 4 years, 3 years old, like we don't have government. As far as I'm concerned in Nigeria, I'm sorry to say that we don't have government. Sorry. So thank you very much.
I hear you.
Thank you.
We have a government, maybe they're not working properly, but we do have a government. Afribull, your hand is up. Do you have anything to comment real quick, Afribull?
Yeah, just a while back. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a while back. So 2 points. When we keep touching on this generating more revenue. If you're taking the revenue position, and it makes sense, of course, where our revenues are down. But I think that not much is being considered on how much time it takes to actually generate sustainable revenue. If you're looking at building out sectors, you look at building industry. The gentleman before, I think he mentioned something about the rice industry, rice production. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah. You can't. It's not overnight. And raising taxes has consequences. Raising taxes to a sustainable level has consequences, and you see that slowly now in Nigeria.
Yeah.
If you're looking at building out the sectors, when you talk about it, those things take time. It takes planning, and it takes a coordinated effort to actually have a master plan that will pan out in 5-10 years. You now have sustainable revenues being generated from industry that has been cultivated through the right policy, the right foundation, the right infrastructure direction. It's not something that's done so easily. Which then, what I'm saying, that leaves on a more immediate level. Austerity and spending is what...
I mean, Afribot, you can increase taxes immediately by... You can get money by just adding maybe electronic money transfer, which is what they've done. Money's coming immediately, like the next day. You can do VAT, money comes immediately. The effect, like you've said, is that people stop using banks. When I went to Lagos.
Yeah, the taxes. I agree. I say, but the tax option really goes to a certain point.
It's net.
You can easily get to an unsustainable level of taxes.
Correct. And let me just make this point again to people. I see people are saying that we don't have two problems. You can only have one problem. We don't have a spending and no, it's one problem. Exactly. But let me challenge people here. I want you to tell me since 1960. When Nigeria got revenues that did not plan for, and it used those revenues for any social service. From 1960 till 2024, I give you two examples. We had the Gulf War. No, before Gulf War, we had the oil crisis in the Middle East. Nigeria got revenues. What did we do with that revenue? Nothing. In 1974, nothing. That's when we were saying our problem was money and not to spend it. We paid the salaries in Guyana. We hosted Festac 77. We did all that. What else did we do with their revenues? Nothing. Nigeria did not increase its educational budget when we had the oil bonanza. Go back to records. It stayed the same. We increased our spendings on things like building Abuja. Back then, we increased our support to ANC. We increased all those things. We did all that stuff, but we did not increase schools in Nigeria, the budget in Nigeria. Gulf War 1, Nigeria got a purported 12 billion. Back then, this is the first Gulf War, not the second one that took away Saddam, the first one. Babangida bought bicycles, brand new 504 cars for every member. If you were in the army, police, navy, you got a brand new car from Peugeot, a Peugeot 504, brand new. Every officer got a car. Everyone, the high officers got Mercedes Benzes. The middle colonels got Santana, Volkswagen Santana. The lower guys got 504s. That's how we spent the money, amongst other things. We built conference center in Abuja. The money has gone. Every time we have an revenues, we don't spend it correctly. Every time. So what makes you think that if we get revenues today, that if we increase the revenues by ×2 today, does it mean education budget is going to go up by ×2? It will not. We have already said on the start of this space that all the revenues that Nigeria generates is going to pay debt service. I said all. I didn't mean all the revenues, oil, gas, every revenue goes to cannot pay debt service. Oil revenues cannot pay salaries. That's where we are right now. And we didn't get here in one day. We got here from successive governments increasing the size of the budget and not increasing revenue of Nigeria. Nigeria has just one export product. That's crude oil. Crude oil is 89% of our export earnings. Agricultural exports do not exist in Nigeria. They are minuscule and out of the way. The only non-agricultural export you have now is the Dangote urea fertilizer export. That's what they are counting as non-oil. They're counting urea as normal. If you take away that urea, take away Dangote cement, then we are not doing anything. This is highest exporter of crude oil in Africa. We have no functional refineries. The Dangote refinery today cannot even function. We have to still import crude oil. The country is not it's not set up properly, guys. The issue is not revenue. We have a revenue problem, but that's not the problem. The problem is that if that revenue came in today, it will be mismanaged tomorrow. That's the problem. And let's not hide. We can't get away from that fact.
That's true.
Yeah, let's
right.
Yeah, let's get JAB in here. Jab, you've got the floor. Jab, go ahead. Chesa Debo, how you doing, sir? JAB, go ahead.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. So, to me, I believe that Nigeria has more of a spending problem rather than revenue problem, because I believe that one thing that we lack in Nigeria, most especially, is accountability. People don't account for ministries that they are in charge of, local government, state governors. They don't account for anything at all. Because at the beginning of the year, we always have, like you said earlier, we have 3 budgets running concurrently right now.
Four.
If we monitor 4. Now, if we monitor those budgets, compare them to the actual now, how much have they spent, and let's see what they've been able to achieve. We don't have a revenue problem. Is this spending? Nobody is checking anybody. They just keep spending it. They initiate project, 10% of the total on the project, and then they just abandon it. Then 4 years after that government comes in, they review it, they bring in another amount out. It is just crazy. We cannot continue like this. I don't know what is it the Accountant General of the Federation, their office, I don't know what they are doing. Are they even checking? I don't know if we have auditors in the federal ministry that are checking this project.
The last Accountant General, not the last one, I think the previous one stole 80 billion naira. EFCC arrested him. I heard he's now his king or something like that, but he stole money. He was arrested, he was fired, he's not in jail. 80 billion. But continue, sir.
Can you just imagine that? That is people that we are even putting in charge to monitor these people in power. So one thing that we can do, we already know that the 2 Senate and House of Representatives is just a waste of money. We all know. Can they scrap one of them? We know that is close to being impossible. So I like to take a practical approach to things. Firstly, is we need accountability. And I don't know how we can go about it as Nigerians. And as I've forgotten the speaker's name, somebody mentioned earlier, we need practical approach. We have to just stop talking about this. It is getting more and more frustrating, most especially when you understand the numbers and you understand how it is affecting you personally. Because currently now, check the middle class in Nigeria. There's no middle class anymore. Everybody is struggling. People are now advising people that you don't have to eat 3 times daily. Is that crazy? Even middle class. When I started my career, I know a lot of folks that were in the middle class and very brilliant people. Currently now, it is very, very difficult. The organization that I am now, it is very, very difficult for you to see experts and people that are professional. Most of them have left the country because the economy is choking them. And what do people need? People just need economic-driven infrastructures to function. That's what people need. People need water. They need light. There are a lot of people that are self-driven in Nigeria. Provide water, provide light, provide accessibility to single-digit loan for entrepreneurs. We have people that have. We can see what the Nigerians in the creative industry are doing. That's to tell you how creative we are in Nigeria. If only the government can provide that enabling environment for them to thrive, people will thrive. Create economic developing projects. That's number one. Let accountability. Let people come and give account of what they are doing. It's not just about the presidency here. There are some organizations, even private organizations in Nigeria, that are poorly run, even more than public organizations. It is about leadership. It's about accountability. Not just about the presidency, not just about governors and members of the House of Representatives, wherever you are, as an individual, as a leader, give accountability. Give accountability is very, very important. So, lastly, I would like to, there's this thing that we do in Nigeria. We have brilliant ideas. Everybody can just come and give their brilliant ideas. But when it comes to implementation, it is zero. Zero implementation. At the end, people just talk to get the money. Once they get the money out, they share the money. We cannot continue this way. I don't know what Mr. Kalu or people at the top that have access to, how will I put it, people that have passion, that still have passion for this country, what they are going to do about this accountability problem. We need to really look at it. We need to, I cannot say the EFCC or the ICPC are not working. We need to start bringing people to book on how they are spending our money. If you spend this money well and the infrastructures are working, we will generate more revenue, directly or indirectly. That's how the economy works. Last year we generated almost 12 point something trillion or so. How much did FIRS generate? FIRS is trying to increase the tax net. At the end of the month, when I get email from for my pay for Lagos State, I see the amount that I'm paying, and I wonder, what are these people even doing for me to be paying this amount? I go out, I buy things, you charge me 7.5 VAT, I come home. Right now, there's no light, they've not had light for almost 48 hours. I've been running on generator all weekend. And I'm paying VAT, I'm paying pay, and it is just becoming very, very frustrating. You can see a lot of people here, they are already in Canada, UK, but there are some people that, we are still in this country, we are looking for, let the government just do something, just make it a little bit easier. It's becoming more and more frustrating. I don't know what they can do about this accountability problem. If they need to create maybe an agency that is driven by patriotic Nigerians, doesn't have anything to do with politics, that need to be monitoring our budgets. Thank you very much for this opportunity. Let me just
appreciate you.
Thank you.
All those things exist. There is nothing you will say here that does not exist already. We have budget monitoring reports. We have a department of budget monitoring. Like you rightly said, implementation. Who is going to do the hard work of following up with what said is going to be spent and what actually spent? Let me give you a tracker. If you go online, just do @tracker. They are a private initiative. They track your budget. They track what was passed and what has been done with pictures. You can follow, you can retweet, you can request to be one of the guys that even track projects. You can say, okay, what projects do I have in my state or in my local government area? You can go there, you can take pictures, you can send to them, and they would post it up. So there are things you as an individual can do that is easy. You don't have to even put your name. If you think someone's going to know you, just follow them, Tracker. They are on here on Twitter. It's private sector led, and that's essentially what they do. So see if you can follow them. Let me get Cindy Adego. Is this Cindy Adego? Hi, Cindy. If you can speak, go ahead.
Can I go ahead?
No. I just asked Cindy. But I just added you. Cindy, speak now. Then I'm going line by line. Cindy, go ahead.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Kalu. Can you hear me?
I can. Thank you.
All right. Good evening, everybody. Like you said, does Nigeria have a spending problem? I would say yes. Our problem is more of a spending problem than a revenue problem. Like you said, you can't have two problems. We have a spending problem in Nigeria. In the era of the oil boom, what did we do with the revenue we received? We saw dollars flying up and down everywhere. Monies were just going from bank account to bank account, different pockets. Money, they were spending money on frivolities. But what did we do at the time? Nothing. We were here when former CBN governor accused the National Assembly of consuming almost 25% of the budget. That's just one arm of the government, consuming up to 25% of the budget. What did we do? Was that problem ever addressed? No, it was never addressed. He also accused the NNPC of not accounting for tens of billions of dollars at the time. What did he do? That eventually led to his relief of his position at the time. But the problem was never addressed. You see, Nigeria we are just headed by people, I don't know if I would say we don't know what we are doing. We just spend money on rubbish. Like people will say, corruption normally is a human problem, but until we start building strong institutions to checkmate excesses of people, we are not going anywhere. We are not going anywhere. Like somebody said, thinking of, charging more on taxes and having people pay more taxes. The gentleman who mentioned paying more pay, Mr. Kalu, you run a corporation. The corporation tax you pay, the income tax you pay for your PIT, the education tax you pay. How many people can conveniently send their children to public schools in Nigeria and vouch for the outcome of those schools? You pay taxes and expecting to get security from the government. But how well does that go? It doesn't go well. We all know we have spending problem in Nigeria. When we had money, were they channeled in the right direction? They've never done that. But every time we come on spaces, we say these things, we tweet about them. No results. The financials we published last time, look at the staff costs in that financials. It covered the chunk of, the revenue they received. And then you look at the cost of debt in that financials. The same thing. Who is going to pay for the cost of that debt? Nigerians. And we Nigerians, we don't even know we pay for all these borrowings that the government is collecting. We pay without knowing. You do a bank transfer, you pay 2,000 naira for buying tomatoes, they will charge you stamp duty, they will charge you VAT, they will charge you all these charges that you cannot account for. Where do they go? They go to the government coffers. What does the government do for you? Nothing. You provide water for yourself, you provide security for yourself, you do virtually everything for yourself. At the end of the day, we are back to square one. We keep talking, and talking. Nothing is ever done. On that note, until we start building really, really strong institutions to checkmate people's excesses, we are going nowhere. Even in the West, there's corruption. It's a human problem. Let's not deny that fact. Westerners are also corrupt. But why? Theirs is on a limit because you have very, very strong institutions that will checkmate you, regardless of who you are. We all saw what's happening to Donald Trump. Can that ever happen in Nigeria? Never. It never does. Every day we see EFCC just play rigmaroling around, just doing a show for us. What happens to these people? Nothing. We go back to square one. We are here, former governor pays school fees in advance. What are they still talking about that today? No. So until we start checking these people, Mr. Kalu.
But to be clear, how do we check them? Is it through the ballot boxes?
No, Mr. Kalu, not through the ballot box. We saw what happened in February of 2023. Until we have strong institutions, look at the judiciary. Can we vouch for them? No. The institutions are headed by humans. We have to check it, for them to be headed by people with, estimable character. People, we just have to have strong institutions, honestly.
Honestly, it's hard. It's hard. And I'm just being honest with you because if I become president, I put my quote-unquote cronies in these institutions, and those guys are supposed to be the ones to checkmate me. Look at the guy that was in the Federal Consumer Board. He's out of office. They just said, oh, he's out, and he's gone. So that's a shot across the bow. The minister that was appointed that has been accused of corruption, she's not fired. We don't know where she's in purgatory. We don't know if she's fired.
Exactly.
We don't know so institutions to me look like the federally appointed. What can the people do? Like I said, tracker, where you can say a private led can track money. Like on Twitter, we're able to get information and share it across the board. I go to the budget office, one of the sites I go to every time. The statistics office, the office of statistics, I go there, I get information, I share all the time. Are there things that private individuals can do to check the excess and spending of this government pool? That's really why I think there's going to be more impact. The Kenyan guys, for instance, they got the bill, and I was listening the lead up to the protest that they had. They were explaining this bill in their local language to people, explaining why this was bad, why these taxes had to go up, and why the government could not reduce its own expenses. Now, the government has reduced their expenses. Why did the government reduce the expenses before passing the bill? And Kenya also has institutions. So where I'm going to, it has to come to the people getting serious. Everybody, like I said, everybody in Nigeria complains, but people want to act but don't know what to do. I get lots of DMs every time. What can I do? What can I do? And this is what I want to get. What can people do? If they see something wrong with the government, what can they do?
Of course, people call out the government every now and then, but what do we do as a people? You don't have the power to curb whatever is going on. Like I said, the institutions we build will have a serious role to play for these things.
Okay.
How do we build these institutions? They will be headed by individuals just like yourself and other people who, have high moral standards to uphold the truth and what is supposed to be.
I think that we should make the Attorney General position maybe not appointed but elective. I think it's one thing we can do, and make it maybe a law to say that the ruling party cannot appoint the Attorney General. It has to be an elective position from. So if you win, then the other guys go and do a campaign for who will become the Attorney General. Maybe that's what we can do. It's way up, but let's start with that. Yeah.
Carl, just 1 minute.
Yeah,
I wanted to add the narrative that you spoke about what we can do. I think we should look at data first, because I like to use data to interpret. Nigerians averagely are not interested in the economy. If you look at Kenya, if you use Google Trend, if you look at key words, entertainment, weddings, social trend in Nigeria more than the economy. That's the truth. You see, if you look at food inflation, for example, you can count the number of people that talk about food inflation on social media. So you see, the problem is that this is the kind of system that enjoys incompetence, because the people are not so, because we only get aggressive when things are burning or when maybe somebody is murdered, somebody is attacked, and we shout and it goes in. But if you look at the data itself, Kalu, we are not really interested in these core issues. So until we get things done by informing people that, see, financial literacy is not just about investing, it's not about blabbing, it's about knowing the economic responsibility as a citizen you must play in the economy. Then that is where accountability starts. The citizens themselves are not fairly accountable. I was telling some people in South Africa, like, they were asking me, why is it that Nigerians, despite the fact that we have so much fintech, we don't really look at our stock market with so much excitement? I said, because it's not attractive. It's not attractive. So, apart from your space, if you look at it, Carlos, this is do a space on Davido and his wife. You will get 5,000 people will come on that space, Carlos. Do a space on a quarrel between one politician and one musician, you will get the 10,000. But look at this space we are having. This is the problem we have in Nigeria, Carlos. It starts from the citizen.
Yeah, I hear you. I mean, how many Nigerians understand that 2025 we're going to pay back $1 billion in cash back to the Eurobonds principal? $1 billion. We're going to pay back. We've already paid IMF about $643 million. I think it was this last one. We're paying a lot of money out. If you look at how many Nigerians understand that what these things mean for the Naira, that FDIs has been flat for almost 10 years. Since Buhari, at the dying ages of Goodluck's presidency and all through Buhari's presidency, FDI was flat, foreign direct investments. And that what we're seeing with SmithKline, Guinness leaving Nigeria has been a long trend that has been going on. Do we understand what it means for foreign companies to be pulling out of Nigeria on a consistent basis? How that affects jobs, how that affects even productivity. Do we understand what that means? So you have a country, Nigeria, where the FDIs are leaving, and then the young youths in the country that are supposed to pay the taxes are also leaving. So the Canadian companies are going back to Canada. The Nigerians are going to Canada with the Canadian companies to pay taxes in Canada. So who's left in Nigeria? You've hollowed out the potential middle class, which means down the line, you're going to find it very, very difficult to grow taxes, because the bulk of your workers that can earn and grow taxes are no longer in Nigeria. I saw one fintech guy, big boy in Lagos. He has dual citizenship. So he's going to be paying taxes in the US today because he's now a US citizen. US taxes you based on your citizenship, not where you live. So if you're a US citizen, you're going to pay taxes in the US, even if you live in Nigeria. But are we connecting the dots is my question. And eventually we scream that, things are hard. But all these are domino effect that we're not really anticipating. Imo Okoronkwo, you've got the floor, sir. Olumide, thanks for that insight. Mr. Imo, yeah, hi. Go ahead.
Thank you so much, sir. Good evening, everyone.
How you doing?
I'm calling from Scotland.
All right.
And thank you so much for this kind of program. Now, the question is if we are having spending problem or revenue problem. I will say we are having both. Also, I will say that the revenue problem we are having is as a result of our spending habit. So if we are able to solve the spending problem, then the revenue problem is no longer an issue. Why did I say so? Because if you check our tax to GDP ratio, you find out that in the whole of Africa, Nigeria is one of the countries that gets very little from tax contributing to the GDP growth. All right. However, the problem is a problem that we see in Nigeria on average person, right? An average poor man in Nigeria, when you increase his income, it will definitely increase his number of clothes, it will definitely increase his number of shoes instead of investing it. So he will continue to be poor because spending on those things is what makes someone poor. It doesn't make rich. That is exactly the picture of Nigeria today. Our leaders, they are spending on frivolities. So that means that even if we increase our revenue, then it will not transcend to improvements in infrastructure. It will not transcend to reducing unemployment. It will not transcend to checking inflation. Why? Because we will spend the more of that revenue on buying aircrafts, buying cars, changing cars every month. You see where a governor is just, let's say a governor is just going how many meters away. You see the number of cars, you see the number of people, right? You see an aid will have an aid, another aid will have an aid, another. So those offices are just being used to siphon money, right? So we continue to borrow for these things. So you look at our borrowing. The last time I checked, at least our borrowing now, if an average Nigeria is to pay, okay, every Nigeria will have to pay almost 500,000. Every Nigeria is owing over 500,000 when you check our borrowing divided by the population. So you find out that our problem now is not really generating money. Our problem is that our spending habits is spending habit. We have a very poor spending habit. We have a spending habit of a poor man. So when somebody said that generation is a problem, yes, it's a problem, but our spending habit is why we are having this problem, generation problem. All right, our marginal propensity to consume is higher than our marginal propensity to save. So when that is the case, there is no amount that you generate that will help the economy. However, it will only help your fleet of cars, the number of cars you have. It will help your stature because you will have to eat more, and that is what is happening in Nigeria. So no matter how much we try to tax the people now, it will not help the economy because we still have that same attitude, that same habit. So we need to change our spending habit so that when we generate, it will also help the economy to improve the economy, improve the GDP, improve the life of the people. You see here, somebody made mention of social security. paying salary as a social security, how many persons are receiving these salaries? Okay, we have a number of, if you ask the federal government to publish the number of people that are receiving a salary from the federal government, you have a lot of lists, you have a lot of people, but if you take a closer look at those numbers, you find out that those numbers, most of them doesn't exist. It's just one person trying to pay so many people to the same one person account, right? You find out that this money is just circulating within a particular set of people. So Nigerians are not really getting it. So if we want to get a social security, can we map out a plan and say, okay, every year, this is what we are budgeting for social security. These are the people, the category of people that are getting it. We have accountability for that. We have statistics, we have number for that, so that at every point in time you look at the numbers and you are seeing the changes.
I hear you.
When somebody gets social security, you are seeing the changes in the economy.
Okay.
When somebody is getting salary, we know this person is getting salary, this person is getting social security, and we'll find ways to also make sure that we have a lot of people that are receiving money. I want to summarize with this, that the problem we are having is spending problem, not really revenue problem. Thank you so much.
Gotcha. So it's more of a structure, like you said, it's a structure that even if we do get the revenues, the structure is wrong. It will still revert back to this excessive spending. And I like the point again you've made about separating the welfare from the civil service. The civil service can't be a welfare scheme. It's got to be totally separated. If you want to start a welfare scheme in Nigeria, let's build one, right? Let's separate it from giving people jobs because we want to give them a sense of income. Separate it completely, and I think to work from there. Legacy Capitals, you've got the floor. Go ahead. Thank you, Imo. I appreciate those comments. Legacy Capital, you've got the floor.
Thank you so much.
Legacy, you've got the floor. If not, I'm going to take Matong Nte. Legacy, go for it. Yep, you got the floor.
Okay. Good evening, everyone.
How you doing?
Actually, I've been listening, to this space, and I've been following all the consequence conversation we are having whenever I have the time. You see, the issue with Nigeria is not a peculiar one, and if I'm to say, it's just a matter of a deliberate problem. It is a problem that can even be solved within the very shortest space of time. But the honest truth is that Nigeria doesn't have a revenue problem. We don't. What we have is spending problem. And a lot of people have said that over and over and over again. The issue is not you generating extra revenue or more revenue, but based on the elite class that we have, the people that are the ruling class, whenever they see a problem, you being the individual that is facing that problem, you see it as a problem that needs to be solved. From their own angle, they see it as avenue to make profits. And Nigerians need to understand it. So long as you are not holding the people accountable, especially your leaders, and rather you are turning back to worship them, we will keep on having this problem. And at the end of the day, this problem will keep on squeezing all of us. That's just it. Some people will claim that it doesn't concern them. They have nothing to do. They have voted once and the rest of all those stuff. They cannot do anything anymore. This is exactly what these people want you to do, for you to cower and move so that they continue doing what they are doing. So for me, we don't have a revenue problem. What we have is a spending problem. And the worst aspect of the spending problem is that the people that we have in the place of government are the people that has no business being there. In almost all the offices in Nigeria, there is none that is functioning. There is a difference that you paid something on a high price, like you paid premium for the service, and you got that service because the person that is there that you paid that premium to knows exactly what he or she is doing. But in Nigeria, we're just based on cronies. And the next man being the citizen or somebody is just looking for the next avenue of opportunity for him to steal from the commonwealth of the people. So these are the problem. It's not a problem of revenue generation. It's not a problem that there is no money there, or it's not a problem that the people doesn't know what they do. But for me personally, I see it as a problem of interest. The people we have representing the government offices that are making the profit out of all these things, they don't have the interest of the nation at heart. What they just know is find it wherever you can get it and get the money. Let us share it. It is just a business.
Interesting. I hear you, sir. I hear you.
So for me, for we to solve this problem, until we the people deliberately become as in active participants in this government and die down the narrative that it doesn't concern us. Some people will justify that God will provide. I'm saying this from the perspective of me been very, very practical in this last election that passed. Right from 2019 is when I started paying attention to all these things. But majority of Nigerians doesn't have the information they need because number one is that they are not interested. And when you tell them these things, rather than them facing the issue or accepting the reality of what is on ground, they find a way to either justify it or to hate you. And when our politicians look at all this narrative and all these things, they don't see any reason for them not to do whatever they want to do. These are the problems. Because for me personally, I don't believe in forgiveness. I believe in consequences.
All right.
And whenever you see people doing something, it's either they have interest or they are moving to the direction of their own. You see it. So everything, we let it go. That's why we see somebody will steal something that belongs to everybody. And there is no accountability because nobody is going to hold him accountable for it. Even the masses will turn a blind eye. I will tell you that even though if you get it there, you can do your own. You don't run a country like that.
All right, perfect. Thanks for the contributions, Legacy. I appreciate it. Very pointed statement, if I may say so myself. I appreciate you commenting, Legacy. Hang in there, get involved. Don't stop getting involved, right? Appreciate that. Akin.
Exactly.
All right, thank you, Legacy. Mr. Akin, hi, how you doing?
Hello?
Yeah, Akin, how you doing?
I can hear you, I'm fine. So this question you've asked, you've raised a lot of really complicated things. Like, so on so many levels, I partially agree with almost everything everyone has said before. Yes, there should be accountability. Yes, we should build institutions. Yes, we should spend money more effectively and efficiently. But then Nigeria also has a revenue problem.
Yeah.
The thing is, if you divide, which I just did a few minutes ago before I came on the podium, if you divide our estimated budgets, so say about 16 billion, by about 210 million Nigerians, that's about what, $76 per person. If you convert that to Naira, that is what pretty much maybe about say 80,000 or 90,000 Naira or something like that per person. Now, that is a very small amount of money per person to do almost anything.
Agreed.
Now, when we now add the issue of the debt servicing and all the other things, you and I know that it's not going to be that $76. It's probably going to be more like $40 per person. So clearly, there's a problem of revenue generation. When you look at Nigeria compared to our peers in Africa, at our level of development, you see that Nigeria stands at the lowest in terms of tax revenue to GDP. It's still low. I'm not even sure Nigeria has even cracked 10% yet in terms of tax revenue to GDP.
We have not.
That's low. So the thing is, just looking at it from those objective measures, let's not talk too much about developed countries. Because if we talk about developed countries, there will be so many tables that will have to be shaken. Because there are some truths that I think Nigerians don't want to hear about development and what leads to development. I think there's this notion, and I'm hearing it from a lot of people. We just think that somehow development happens by just voting people, or even democracy. Generally speaking, we have that notion that is really what leads to development, but it's much, much, much more complicated than that. I think most people that study economic history, economic development, know that you basically break a lot of eggs, and you waste a lot of eggs. You break a lot of eggs. You learn as you're doing. Now, the system of government that you have, the political system that you have, makes some of those things happen and some of those things not happen. So, for instance, the issue of effective management of public resources, the thing is this: it is fundamentally a political problem. It's not a problem really that can be solved by quote unquote having accountability. Who are the people that are going to that are going to keep people accountable. Those people too have political overlords. Now, it's like a chicken and egg kind of problem. So if you say today that, oh, you're going to build institutions, who builds those institutions? It's people whose livelihood depends on the current system. Now, how likely is it that if you put the 300 of us on this space and you put us in that position, that we will do any better than the people that currently exist? It's very unlikely. The thing is that the system, the whole problem is a political problem, and I'm not even so sure that even greater participation by the average Nigerian is going to solve the problem. Because the thing is, you and I know that Nigeria is a country that is deeply driven by ethnic and tribal issues. Like, these are not something that you can simply just wish away and just think, oh, everybody just speak with one voice. Nigerians will not speak with one voice. Even during COVID-19, when the country was at the worst position it's been since the Civil War, we're not speaking with one voice. That's to show you the problem. So I think the real issue is that I think it pains me to say this, but I think Nigeria is a fundamentally ungovernable country. I think we just had that 8 years under the Obasanjo administration and maybe 2 years or so under Jonathan before everything really got so bad, that we're living in this bubble where we thought this is the way things are. But the reality is that if you look through Nigeria's history, what we got under Buhari and what we are getting currently under Tinubu are effectively what Nigeria's governments usually look like. This is the typical Nigerian government. If you look from the Tafawa Balewa era, let's even assume that Tafawa Balewa didn't know a lot of things because he was the first person. But from the Aguiyi Ironsi to go on and the like, this is the typical Nigerian kind of government thing. It's not something that just currently existed. And unfortunately, I think the thing about about elections, I'm not certain elections are going to even give any sort of check on anything that is going on in the country. It's a really unfortunate thing for me to say. I think it's a very wicked problem. It's not a problem of simply just saying, oh, we'll just get the right people in. How do you get the right people in a political system where it's people that have money and moneyed interests, people that have money and have access that are more likely to get into government, both the civil service and the elected office?
Let me ask you a question. So, I think I honestly agree with everything you said. But let's look at this, right? Let's look at Kenya and Nigeria. You know, the Kenyans have many similarities with us. Also a dysfunctional government, also a corrupt government, also tribes. You know, there's this popular saying that Obama would not have been elected in Kenya because of his tribe is so small.
Yeah, it's from the lower tribe and all of that.
Got you. Okay. All right. Kenya went ahead. When they were campaigning, the Ruto guy went ahead and I was negotiating with the IMF. They knew what the IMF had asked them to do. The IMF had said they're going to have to increase taxes, blah, blah, blah. They passed the finance bill. When Ruto was I think it was last month, Ruto got about $937 million from the IMF. The base for getting that money was to pass up this bill. So they signed $2.3 million loan. They gave them about $1 billion or so last month. The hope was that, okay, now you've gotten the money, go and pass the Finance Act and we'll give you more money. They did that, right? They passed the Finance Act. They literally passed the act. Then what happened? The youth came and says, no, this cannot happen. You've got to go back and cut your expenses. Even if you're going to pass the act, we want you and I to suffer together. You go and cut your expenses. They said, no, we won't cut expenses. The place went into chaos. Now, right now, we're at a situation where the Kenyan government has cut expenses. They've cut expenses, right? So essentially, it worked in Kenya. Whether they cut $1 or they cut 1 cent, but they cut it after saying they would never cut it, that they could only pass the finance bill. Now they have to go borrow. We can argue as that money, but they cut it. The youths made them cut it because the youths got involved, were informed, and held their ground. So why can't it happen in Nigeria?
So, Carlo, I want to say this, and I think currently, I think we in Africa, we are currently seeing the effects. So, a few years ago, about 2 or 3 years ago, we're getting some people going online saying what China is doing in Africa is debt diplomacy, is colonialism by another name and everything. But where are those people today? The Chinese basically were giving loans to countries. They gave loans to even this same Kenya to go and build rail. Literally, China just tells you, okay, you want to loan. What do you want to use it for? You want to do? They'll give you. They don't tell you how to change your laws. They don't change your political system. They don't ask for human rights concessions and whatnot. We had gullible, extremely gullible Africans that were going online and saying this is colonialization or colonialism. Now we have the IMF going to so many African countries, essentially telling them that they should cut their states. They should literally take a sledgehammer and destroy their states. These are states that already have a shortfall of teachers, of police officers, of soldiers, whatnot. And we're telling them, and they're telling them to take a sledgehammer to them, telling them to adopt certain human rights things. Yes, I support there's a lot of those human rights concessions personally, but if your country is not at that position, you can't force them to get to that position. So the thing is, I agree. Like, I agree that everybody should be in the same boat. Like, you can't be telling somebody that they should tighten their belt. I don't even think Nigerians have any belts to even tighten, because at this point, Nigerians are dying. It's not even an exaggeration anymore. So we saw the Guardian report last week. About 1 in 7 Nigerians are literally starving at this point. So
Aki, where I'm going to is that the first comment you made, I agree with it 100%. Like you said rightly, the Nigeria is a difficult. I want to use the word difficult place to govern. I agree. I'm saying that Kenya also was difficult, and Kenya had disputed elections like Nigeria. Even before Ruto, before Kenyatta, people were killed for the elections. But they seem to have now, the youth seem to have come together now and held their politicians to account. And remember, the military were deployed. The court says, nope, go back to your barracks. The religious leaders came out and said, we support the Kenyan youth. So there was no cover for the politicians. The army didn't come out. The religious guys didn't come out. It was them versus their youths, and their youths have won. Irrespective of what happens to the Kenyan economy, no Kenyan MP can tomorrow bring any bill that would say we're going to increase taxes without first showing, not just cutting, showing that they have cut their own tax. This is the point I'm making. Why has Kenya been able to get it right and we haven't?
So the thing is, if I tell you today that the answer is that I have a very good answer for you, that would be a lie. The truth is that Nigeria is just it confounds so much. It's especially on the political sphere. The economics is quite straightforward, but the politics is so unbelievably, fiendishly difficult. Like, you can literally say today, you bring in a whole political party. They've campaigned on, we are going to bring, say, consumption to production. They will enter there and will start to allocate resources to buy cars, to buy this, to buy that, to buy this. Literally things that are not going to add value to the policy making of the National Assembly. Like, this is what you get in a country. Look at even the states too. States that are even homogeneous. Let's not even talk of the much more heterogeneous states in Nigeria. Say like in Niger Delta or in the central part of the country, north central, middle belt, as people will call it. You still see the same thing. Say there was a state just a few months ago. Literally 6 or 7 months after election, they have already impeached the speaker. Like, the thing is, the politics is so fiendishly, so wickedly difficult. And unfortunately, on top of the poor politics and the extremely terrible politics that the country has, you now have a bunch of people who do not even know the job of the administration part. So it now compounds the problem. It's like a vicious cycle. Politics printing all sorts of terrible-minded people that just have money and connections. Really, that's what they have. They have no business being in government.
Okay, I mean, yeah, I hear you. I mean, you just have to rotate the room. I hear you. It's just, like you said, like I totally agree with you. Nigeria is a confounding place where people would agree with you. People will be in a room together, and we both agree we are starving. Then you say, okay, we are both starving, right? There is food in that cupboard. Let's go get food in that cupboard. And the person says, no, I won't go and get the food. But we're both starving, yes. So let's go get food. No, I don't want to get the food. I want to starve, and I want to support the person I don't know.
Exactly.
I don't.
The thing that sometimes
it's. Okay, let's just. I don't want to go. I don't want to go there. But it's. I don't know. I don't get it. Let's get Matong Nte. Aki, I appreciate you. Thank you. Matong Nte, you've got the floor, sir. Matong going once. Matong, are you ready to speak? Let's get Orator 2012. Munstar Dauda. Is that you, sir?
Yes, that's me.
Mr. Dauda, please go ahead. You've got the floor. Yeah.
Okay. Well, it's a very interesting conversation. Just to air my opinion about whether Nigeria's problem is generation or the problem of spending. Well, I go with those that are of the opinion that Nigeria's problem, is a combination of both. Because when we look at it, Nigeria is highly dependent on oil revenue. And beyond oil revenue, we are not making, major strides in other things that will drive money into the country. And even the revenue we generate from oil, there is so much corruption, and Nigeria is not getting value for its money. I know most of us have seen the documentary of how the oil company in Saudi Arabia monitors whatever is dug from the ground, and then monitored up to the revenue, the chain of revenue that comes to the country. So everything is being monitored, and there is open government accountability, and so on and so forth. So actually, Nigeria has to diversify its economy in order to generate the much needed revenue to take the country to where we want it to be.
I got you.
Nigeria is so much blessed. We have, a good climate for agriculture, and it surprises me when I checked the last time that China, even though it is leading in terms of technology, is actually generating the most revenue in terms of agriculture worldwide. And what is helping it do that? It's because the government is supporting the agricultural reforms in China. And, there is a high, amount the large force of people that are in the agricultural chain, are good enough to take the country to that level. So we really need to do a lot about agriculture, and then also look at the other mineral resources that we have. I saw the last time that a symbolic gold was presented to the president, and I laughed because they allowed people stealing the gold reserves that we have, and then coming symbolically on television that Nigeria is coming with an estimate of what it is going to generate from mining gold. So actually, we are not a serious country in terms of optimizing the resources that we have. So unless we do that, we'll continue to have shortage of revenue, and even the oil that we have is not really helping helping us. And I remember watching an interview where a contrast is being made between Nigeria and other oil-rich countries. Obasanjo was the interviewee on that hard talk with the anchor of the program. And then he said, well, it is not good to make this comparison between Nigeria and other countries in terms of what we are getting from oil, because definitely you can't compare. So the oil industry is such an industry that even the president does not have the clout to actually control what is happening within that space. So and that is why it is very important we strengthen our institutions. And I heard the last time you were asking, how can these institutions be strengthened? And I liked it that you said, well, we have to separate the office of the Attorney General and the Minister of Justice to make the office of Attorney General, an office that citizens can elect, and the office will be independent. It is not actually submitting to the President and Commander-in-Chief of the Federal Republic of Nigeria or any other political office holder, So that would be one of the ways we can strengthen our institutions. We can strengthen our institutions also by promoting the reforms in the judiciary to make sure that cases are disposed quickly in our courts. To make sure that laws are reviewed that are in tandem with the realities of our time. So all these things have to be done in order to take this country to where we want it to be. So in terms of spending also, we have a huge spending problem as a country. Corruption is the key, because we are not serious as a country. We allow every sector to be corrupt. Mismanagement is at the highest level. And so Nigeria's problem is just a combination of these two factors. We have shortage of revenue, and even at that, we are also spending recklessly. So actually, we need to do a lot, and I like it that majority of those contributing in this space are young people. And we need to have a common vision. We need to have a shared vision of how we want this country to be. We have to take this country from those that, are not ready to move it forward. So I think this is...
and Dada, let me just also say this, just so people to follow, right? There is no organization or nation or institution or group of people you will ever ask, do you have enough money? And they will say, yes, we have enough money. Warren Buffett has nearly 150 billion, only they will know the figure better, in cash. Now, Google has billions in cash. They still are doing business today. They still want more revenues today. So when we ask the question, does Nigeria have a spending problem or revenue problem? There is no country on earth, even Saudi Arabia, that does not have a revenue problem. So I hope people understand the question is tongue-in-cheek. We're not in any way saying that, we shouldn't go and get revenues. No, we're trying to use just a use of English. I'm responsible to put asking me on DMs. It's just use of English. How you say, do you have pepper? Things like that. We know what we're saying. Nigeria has got a revenue problem in that it has to grow its GDP to revenues. Everybody knows that. But the real question we're asking here is that, what about the spending? We're really concerned that if we grow our revenues tenfold, we are concerned that the National Assembly's budget is going to grow 50-fold. That's our concern. Because factually, if you look at the National Assembly budget, it has grown over the years. Today, the National Assembly budget is larger than 18 states of the Federation. 18 states. So if you take the budget, it's larger. So we're not in any way saying that we have enough revenue that if we cut corruption today, if corruption was zero today, Nigeria cannot grow with a 15 trillion budget now. That it's not possible. But the fear is this. This is why Nigeria don't want to pay taxes. If you go and you pay taxes to the federal government of Nigeria, your money is going to go to a private jet, or going to go to a yacht, or going to go to SUVs. That's why people don't want to pay. So we have the revenue problem, but we want to make sure that if we solve that revenue problem, that we don't have a spending problem. Right now, what we see in front of us, which is clear, is that the spending problem is more of a danger to the country than the revenue problem. If the government is broke today, right, there is still money from the private sector coming in. But if the government is spending, if the government goes to there and says, we're going to take away all the money from DOM account, the country will stop functioning. That's the fear. So I just hope we're just playing with words here to say, oh, spending problem. If you have a bucket and the bucket has a hole, and you sneak in, would you now say, oh, no, I'm going to increase the water flow? No, you plug the holes in the bucket before you say you increase the water. You put the tap off, you plug the holes, then you put the tap back on to retain the water that has come through the bucket. You won't say, just increase the flow of the water so that the balance between what is escaping and what to have in the bucket, I'll take my bath with it. That would be lunacy. So, Martin, thanks so much for those comments. Yeah, I mean, we've got about 10 minutes to round up, guys. Thanks you so much. Every week we come and we talk, and people hang out here for nearly 3 hours talking about the economy and finance. So let's just sort of start to wind down. Mr. Engineer Zik, we've got you on tap. Let's do Engineer Zik. Let's do Ogom. We'll do Taiwo. We'll do Sex. We'll call today. So, guys, you guys can do a minute or two. That will work just perfect. So we'll have everyone on tap speaking, and then we'll go from there. Engineer Zik, real quick, you've got the floor. If it's not, let's go to Taiwo. Taiwo man, Dr. T.
Okay.
Real quick, engineer, go ahead.
Hello, good evening. Yeah, good evening.
Yeah.
But yeah, real quick, I find it needful. I've been listening from the one to speak. Reason being that on every time I speak on this space, I always come up with one point, and it's something that so hurt me in mind, and it's about the citizen mindset. It's a point that I always bring up. Nigeria has a spending problem, and it's the spending problem that leads to revenue problem. There's always revenue problem, I believe that. But the problem is the citizens of the country, we don't even know that there's overspending. Either they know and we don't defend it. I don't know. I believe we don't know that there's even overspending. Most people don't know that these politicians are overspending our money. They don't care. As long as they wake up, eat, go back to sleep in the night, and that is all. If the government are spending well, you're creating roads that leads to farms. You're giving contract, genuine contract. I'm not talking of padded contracts. That's another ball game on its own. If you want to start going into contract allocation in this country, if they are not giving out padded contracts, giving contract to politicians, if they are giving genuine contract, people get work from construction, they pay tax, you generate revenue, you recycle the money, and you have a stable economy at least. But the problem is we have politicians that only take money, embezzle this money, they don't do anything with it, and we as citizens, we sit and we can't talk.
All right.
We don't talk.
All right, engineer.
You understand? I believe that is just the major problem. The problem is far beyond the spending, and it's citizen mindset, and it's one of the key places we have to address.
I appreciate that, and I think you're spot on that. Taiwo, Dr. T.
Oh, yeah. Good everyone. If I have to choose between spending problem or revenue problem, I will say Nigeria has a spending problem. Revenue is not really a problem because since independence, Nigeria has been doing great, But when we begin to have irresponsible leaders, then the problem automatically emanates. Coup plots, and all the adventures that are taking place over the decades. Singapore started like Nigeria. In fact, they are smaller than Lagos. You don't even see them on the world map. But then they had great leaders. The first leader who was the equivalent of the Awolowo, Zik, and so on, was living in just a small house. Even to today, if you go to Singapore and want to visit, you can still see the small house he was living in. But when our leaders live in comfort zones
and you don't even, okay, and I will ask, who has ever seen Tinubu come to your street just to see how you are suffering or when you have no NEPA? And so, when developed countries, leaders manage institutions. If elections are going to take place today, what's their guarantee that INEC will allow, free and fair elections, to usher in great leaders that will have visions 10 years, 20 years down the line? That's number one. But I hate to talk about problems. Let's be pragmatic. Talk about solution. The Kenya approach is
real quick, sir. You've got about a minute to go. Real quick.
Yeah, the Kenya approach is one way. There has to be a revolution, a way to change leaders that truly and change the system such that things will go the right way. And again, it's about the attitude. Sometimes, let people sit at home and let these people know that they feel the pain the citizens feel, But that said, I will yield the mic.
I appreciate that. I hear you. Sax, is it Sax? I don't know if I get that right.
Good day, everyone. Let me start by saying I don't think there's any government in this world that has inexhaustible income. So that issue of revenue, I don't think that's the problem. The biggest problem is the spending problem, and I think so by Nigerian standard. It's the way our politics or our government is structured. I'm always of the opinion that it is too big in a way that it makes it very complex, that it's inaccessible or unreachable to the common man. I will always tell people, not until we have to restructure our government back to local government, not even state. When people just talk about government, everybody say, let's restructure back to state. Let's take government to the people, take it down to local government. So I think if local government is kind of more homogeneous. If your local government chairman is mismanaging your fund, people can easily reach him and frown at him and do all sorts of things. Then everybody's just looking at Abuja. So our politicians just go there to waste away fund, and the locals in every nooks of this local government, most of them, their voice are not being heard over in Abuja, and they cannot do anything about it. So first of all, we have to break the system of government and take it back to the people.
Yeah. I hear you. So let me get Ogum. So I sort of cut you in shadows if I get Ogum in here as last speaker before we close. Ogum, you've got the floor, last speaker. And I hear you, Dr. Sir Ike, take the governance back to the people. They are near to the people, easier to counter them there. Ogum, you've got the floor, last speaker, then we'll round up.
Okay. Thank you for this opportunity to air my views. I think since I've been listening here, all of us can actually agree collectively that Nigeria has a spending problem. So I'm going to point an issue, something that all of us are overlooking. I think in the next 2050, it's quite fortunate that Nigeria is going to be the most populated country in Africa. And with the issue of spending problem that we have here, seriously, just if you can actually imagine what will happen if you don't get things right by then. Then secondly, with all the points being spoken on by the speakers here, all of us can agree that you can't talk about spending problem without talking about politics. Like whatever Nigeria is going through is about the politics or the politicians. So again, I think mostly what we are actually missing is this country has to be restructured, and again we have to do data has to come in terms of okay, if you are putting this person up there, at least the people supposed to contribute. Like, okay, let me just say, if you are going to appoint the CBN governor, for example, maybe you list your candidates, then people can also vote for a person who has a credible record. And again, the issue that we have in this country, again, if I'm just trying to round up, is we don't have a good structure, a continuation culture, whereby even if this past administration that left, at least things will be very accountable. Like the next people who will come in will have a book of what to work with. You understand? To continue. That problem can be, sir?
I think I got you. We're going to round up now. So I appreciate you. Those are fantastic comments. Thanks for making them. Hey guys, thanks for hanging out here. Believe it or not, it's 3 hours. We've been talking the economy, public finance, and of course, your own personal finance for the last 3 hours with all Nigerians. Talking about if we have a spending problem or revenue problem Of course, the whole idea is to see that, listen, revenues are not ever going to be enough, but we've got to get better with how we spend. We've got to be more targeted in how we spend our money. We've got to ensure that 1 naira, 1 plus 1 becomes 11. That's the goal for Nigerian government. We spend to stimulate the private sector to come in and continue that spending, because we have a large population to feed and we only have that limited oil revenues plus non-oil revenues to spend it on. So let's get better. Lastly, we've got to participate. Let's stop complaining too much. Let's participate in the process. There are many ways to do it. I mentioned Tracker. Track where your money is going to, see how it's been spent. Hold your tax spenders to account. Don't fall back. Don't say you've given up. That's what they want. Once you fall back, then the money, of course, is going to be spent without any oversight. On that note, guys, let me round up. My name is Kalu Archer. I'll see you guys here next week again on that topic when we talk about your personal finances and, of course, the government's and global finances as well. See you guys then. Guys, have a good week. Love yourselves, and please